The story begins as we learn that the gods came down to the world in search of excitement, so they decided to live among humans, and they sealed their powers to have normal lives. The only thing they can give humans is their blessing, which grants them the power to fight monsters, and the people who receive it become their familia. In the present, we see a boy named Bell, who's the only member of the Hestia Familia, and he runs away from a monster, but he reaches a dead end. He thinks it's all over for him, but a girl named Eyes suddenly comes to his rescue, cutting the beast in half. After that, Bell walks through the town covered in blood, and he attracts everyone's attention because he looks like someone who took on more than he could handle. He meets with a guild officer named Ina, who scolds him for going to the 5th floor, and she thinks he's lucky to be alive, because a lot of level 1 adventurers wouldn't have survived a Minotaur attack. He asks her about Eyes, and Ina sees that he's blushing, so she realizes that he's in love. She mentions how Eyes is part of the Loki Familia, and she's also one of the strongest swordsmen in the country, but Bell wants to know if she has someone special. So Ina notes that she hasn't heard anything about it, but it will still be difficult for him to get Eyes to like him. But she tells him to cheer up and trade the gems he earned for money. He prepares to leave, but she mentions how girls like boys who can protect them, so Eyes might like him back if he works hard to get stronger. Bell thinks about how his grandfather told him he needs to pick up women in the dungeon, because if he can save them, she'll be grateful to him and they'll get to know each other. He realizes that his grandfather's advice is true, but it's the opposite for him, since he's the one who was saved. Bell returns to his house, where Hestia hugs him, and she's worried when he tells her about the monster that attacked him, but he promises that he won't leave her alone. She shows him potatoes that she got from working at the food stand, but she mentions how she still hasn't had any luck finding people who want to join her familia, thinking it's because she isn't a popular goddess. She wishes she could at least use her divine powers, but there's a rule that she can't use them in the lower world, and she apologizes for making him form a contract with her since she's a useless goddess. But he tells her their familia is just getting started, and he notes that once they survive the hard part, things will become easier for them. She mentions that it's time to upgrade his status, so she starts to cast a spell on his back, as she notes that his idea of picking up girls in the dungeon won't work. She knows he likes Eyes, but she thinks a strong girl like her must already have a man in her life, so she tells him to forget about her. She mentions that he might have already met the girl he's supposed to be with, so he should pay attention to what's in front of him, and he checks his stats, but he's disappointed that his magic power is still 0. He sees something written in the skills section, but Hestia tells him it's nothing, explaining that there are marks there because her hand slipped. But she knows that he actually unlocked a skill, which will make him level up quicker, as long as he has strong feelings about it. She's happy that he finally unlocked a skill, but she's also annoyed that it was someone else who changed him, because she always had her eyes on him. The next day, Bell wakes up and sees Hestia sleeping on top of him, but he's embarrassed seeing her chest, so he decides to head out. While walking through the town, he senses someone watching him, but he's interrupted by a girl named Seer, who gives him a magic stone that he dropped. She hears his stomach growling, so she gives him her breakfast, but he refuses to take it. She assures him it's fine, because she'll have a lot to eat when the restaurant opens, but she makes him promise to eat there once he gets back. Bell goes to the dungeon, where he eliminates a group of monsters, but as he's collecting the stones they dropped, he wonders how much it will take for him to catch up to Eyes. Another group of monsters appears, and he thinks about running away, but he remembers Eyes and decides to fight them. As he returns home, he's shocked to see how much stronger he's become, and he asks Hestia why he's growing so much, but she ignores him and leaves. She thinks about how even though Bell has her by his side, he got stronger after he met Eyes, which means he really likes her. Meanwhile, Bell goes to the restaurant where Seer works, and the chef named Mia gives him food, but he's worried that it might cost a lot, since he's saving for his familia. Seer mentions how she likes meeting new people, so it's the perfect place for her to work, because all kinds of people come there. Eyes arrives with her familia members, which shocks Bell, and he's stunned by how beautiful she looks. Seer tells him they're regular customers, and she thinks it's because their god likes the place, so he realizes that he can see Eyes if he comes there. One of the Loki Familia members named Beta asks Eyes to tell everyone how she defeated a Minotaur on the 5th floor, where she saved a kid who ran away after getting covered in blood. Eyes thinks they can't blame him for acting like that, and another Familia member named Riveria tells Beta to be ashamed, because it's their fault for letting the Minotaur escape from the 17th floor. He thinks he can't be blamed for telling the truth, and he mentions how even Eyes won't allow such a coward to stand by her, but Bell can't bear to hear anymore, so he runs away. Eyes sees him and tries to catch up to him, but she realizes that he's already gone, wondering if he was the boy she saved. Bell goes to the dungeon, where a frog monster eats him up, but he destroys it from the inside. He thinks about how he wishes for things to happen without doing anything, but he knows that he needs to work hard to stand by Eyes' side, so he decides to fight any monster that stands in his way. As he returns home, Hestia is shocked to see how injured he is, but he just tells her he wants to get stronger, and she's glad that he's putting in the work. Hestia uses her spell to check Bell's stats again, and she can't believe how strong he has become, realizing it's because of his unique skill, which even she hasn't heard of. She can't tell him about it because the other gods might be listening, but she knows that he's been working hard to get stronger, so she decides to tell him about his stats. He can't believe how much he has improved, and she thinks he has talent, so he'll continue to get stronger. She mentions that she respects his resolve, so she decides to lend her powers to him, but she makes him promise to stop being reckless. So he assures her that he won't leave her, which makes her relieved, and she notes that she'll be gone for a few days. He goes back to the restaurant, where he apologizes for running away, and pays the money he owes them. Mia tells him if he didn't come back, she was planning on going after him, but Seer's glad that he returned, and she knows that he's going to the dungeon, so she made lunch for him. He refuses to accept it, but she forces him to take it, and Mia tells him to thank her, because she was the one who persuaded everyone there to forgive him. Mia mentions that there's no use for an adventurer to pretend to be something he isn't, and she advises him to put all his energy into surviving. She notes that it doesn't matter if he feels pathetic, or if people laugh at him, because what's important is that he comes back alive. Meanwhile, Hestia is at a party for the gods, where she tries to steal food, but another goddess named Freya interrupts her. Loki joins them as well, and Hestia asks her if Eyes is seeing someone, but she notes that Eyes is her favorite, so she'll destroy anyone who comes after her. Freya mentions how it's been a while since she saw Loki in a dress, and she notes that she heard Hestia was coming, so she decided to go there just to laugh at her, because Hestia can't even afford a dress. But she tells Loki that everyone will laugh at her flat chest, which makes her angry, so she pinches Hestia's cheeks. A god named Hephaestus interrupts Hestia, who's happy to see her, but she tells Hestia she won't lend her money again, reminding her how she used to freeload off of her Familia, and when they kicked her out, she came crying back since she was broke. But Hestia explains that things have changed, because she now has her own Familia. Freya decides to leave, because she has done what she came to do, and she mentions that she had fun at the party. After she leaves, Hestia bows before Hephaestus and asks her to make a weapon for Bell, but she refuses her request and tells her to save up the required money. But Hestia continues to follow her after they leave the party and keeps begging her to grant her request. Meanwhile, Bell is looking at a dagger, but he's interrupted by a god named Mayak, and Bell asks him why he didn't go to the banquet of the gods. So he explains that he was invited, but he's been busy preparing goods since his Familia is so small. He gives Bell 2 vials, and he refuses to accept them, but Mayak forces him to take them, because it's his way of asking Bell to keep helping his Familia. We return to Hestia, as Hephaestus asks her why she's so desperate for her help, so she explains that she wants to support Bell, who needs to walk a dangerous path to reach his goal. She notes that he's always there for her, but she feels bad since she can't help him, because she can't even do things a normal god should be able to do. Hephaestus decides to help her, but she tells Hestia she'll still need to pay the fees even if it takes her centuries, asking her what kind of weapon Bell uses. So she realizes that Hephaestus plans to make the weapon herself, which excites Hestia, because she's known as the divine smith in heaven. Hephaestus reminds her that she can't use her divine powers, because they aren't in heaven, but Hestia isn't worried about it. Hephaestus opens a secret door, and as she prepares to make the weapon, she tells Hestia to help her. In the city, a waiter from the restaurant named Anya suddenly gives a wallet to Bell and tells him to give it to Seer, so he becomes confused. Another waiter named Ryu tells her she needs to give a better explanation to Bell, so she explains that she's asking him to give the wallet to Seer because she forgot it while going to Monsterphilia. He has no idea what Monsterphilia is, so they explain that it's a huge event hosted by the Ganesha Familia, where they take over the Colosseum for the day and tame monsters brought in from the dungeon. Meanwhile, Hephaestus finishes making the weapon, which makes Hestia happy, but Hephaestus tells her she shouldn't forget to pay for it. we see Freya telling Loki that she's after the child of another Familia, but she suddenly leaves without giving Loki details, which makes her wonder if something's wrong. Bell starts looking for Seer, but he runs into Hestia, who invites him to go on a date with her. He tells her how he was asked to look for a person, but she notes that they can look for them while they're on a date, and they buy crepes from a shop. She offers to feed him with her hands, but he refuses to take her food, and tells her to eat his crepe instead, so she takes a bite. He notices cream on her mouth, and he tries to clean it up, but his whole body turns red. In the Colosseum, Freya frees a monster, which goes outside and starts attacking Hestia. They both try to run away, but it catches up to them, and it's about to grab her, but Bell attacks it even though he's scared. He tries to stab it with his knife, but it breaks into pieces, and the monster sends him flying into a wall. It prepares to finish him off, but he suddenly throws a bomb, which blinds the monster with a flash of light, and he runs away with Hestia. But he knows that he can't protect her, so he pushes her past a door and closes it, telling her to get away while he holds it off. Bell thinks about the day when he learned that his grandfather had been killed by a monster, and they couldn't even find his body because it had fallen into a deep valley. He decided to follow in his grandfather's footsteps by becoming an adventurer, but he was rejected by everyone since he looked weak. But he refused to give up, and eventually ran into Hestia, who invited him into her Familia. In the present, the god Ganesha learns that 9 monsters have escaped, so he orders his men to ask for help from other families, because they can't stop the monsters on their own. They think that asking for help from others will humiliate them in front of everyone, but he notes that they should worry about the people's safety before anything else. Meanwhile, Bell continues to struggle against the monster, and Hestia remembers how Hephaestus told her about the writing she carved on the weapon. She explains that the weapon will come alive the moment Bell grabs it, and it will continue growing with him, so Hestia realizes that she needs to give it to him. The monster is about to finish Bell off, which makes him remember the time Aya saved him from the Minotaur. But he knows that she isn't coming to his rescue, and he's glad because he doesn't want her to see him in such a condition. Near the Colosseum, a girl explains the situation to Ina, who doesn't think they'll find any adventurers there. But she sees Eyes, who decides to help them, and she immediately defeats one of the monsters. Ina mentions that they've also asked other adventurers for help, but a few monsters are still at large, so Eyes goes to look for them. Meanwhile, the monster is about to end Bell's life, but it gets distracted as Hestia arrives, and it tries to attack her, so Bell dives to save her. But he doesn't understand why she came back, so she explains that she'll never leave him behind, reminding him of his promise that he won't leave her. He explains that with the way things are going, both of them will end up dead, but she tells him he shouldn't give up so easily. The monster continues coming after them, so Bell picks her up and runs away, and she knows they're in trouble, but she's still happy that he's carrying her. They find a hiding spot, but Bell knows that the monster will eventually find them, and Hestia mentions that she has a plan, telling him she'll upgrade his status so that he can defeat it. He thinks it's impossible, because he won't be able to defeat it even if he gets stronger, but she mentions that she believes in him, and she gives him his new knife. In the city, Eyes defeats all the monsters, but she learns that there's still one left, and even the Ganesha Familia's strike forces couldn't find it. Hestia starts to upgrade Bell's status, and she's surprised by how much stronger he's become, but the monster finds them, so she quickly finishes her spell. She sees that Bell is afraid, so she calms him down, and he rushes towards the monster, which tries to smash him to the ground, but he dodges the attack. It attacks him with its chain, but he blocks it with his knife, breaking the chain into pieces, and Hestia explains how the weapon will get stronger as he grows, so he needs to believe in himself. He jumps in the air and attacks the monster from above, which breaks its armor, but it still keeps attacking him. So he rushes forward and stabs its chest, killing it in an instant, and its body turns to dust. Everyone starts to applaud him, while Eyes watches him with the crowd, and she decides to leave since the monster has been defeated. Hestia suddenly falls unconscious, so he takes her to the restaurant, where he thanks Seer for letting Hestia rest there. Seer realizes that he got involved because she forgot her wallet, so she apologizes for getting him into trouble, but he assures her that it wasn't her fault. She notes that she has fallen in love with him after seeing him fight, which makes him blush, but he thinks she's just making fun of him. Hestia wakes up, and Bell tells her how the other monsters have also been defeated thanks to Eyes, but he asks her where she got the knife. So she reveals that Hephaestus made it for her, and he's surprised hearing this, because he knows that her weapons are expensive. Hestia knows that he's been looking at the weapons shop, but he can't afford the items since they're expensive. So she made arrangements with Hephaestus because she wants to help him get stronger, which makes him cry. In the dungeon, we see a child collecting gems, but a man yells at her for being slow, telling her she's useless as a supporter, but he thinks he can still use her as a decoy if he gets surrounded by monsters. We return to Bell, as he tells Ina to grant him access to the 7th floor, which shocks her, because he almost died on the 5th floor, but he assures her that he's gotten stronger. He reveals that several of his status levels have gone up to E, but she doesn't believe him, so he shows his back to her, and she realizes that he's telling the truth. She knows that she can't refuse him entry to the 7th floor, because his status scores have improved, but she notes that there's still a problem, and tells him to meet her the next day. But when he sees her, he's surprised by how different she looks, and she wonders if he's excited to go shopping with her. She asks him if he has anything to say about her outfit, which makes him blush, and he notes that she looks younger than usual. After that, Ina takes him to the Hestia Familia's shop called Babel, which shocks him, because he doesn't have the money to shop there, but she forces him to come with her. As they enter the shop, Bell is amazed by the items, and Ina mentions that they're heading to the upper floors, but they can still look around before going there. Bell runs into Hestia, and they're both shocked to see each other, but she's annoyed that he's with Ina. She wonders if Ina is trying to seduce him using her position in the guild, but she assures her that she has no such intentions. Ina takes Bell to the upper floor, where the items aren't that expensive, because they were made by newer blacksmiths, who just want to have their products evaluated by their customers. He looks around and finds an armor he likes, and he knows that it will cost him all of his money, but he still decides to buy it. Ina tells him she's found an item for him, but he tells her he already made up his mind on what to buy, and reveals that he's going to the dungeon tomorrow. She wishes for him to form a party, and tells him he should at least hire a supporter, because it will make things more efficient. After that, Ina gives him a present, which he refuses to accept, but she notes that he should take it for his own sake, because there's no telling what might happen to an adventurer. She doesn't wish for him to die in the dungeon, telling him she wants to help him after seeing how hard he works, which makes both of their faces turn red. Bell makes his way home, but he sees that a man named Gid is about to attack a girl, so he protects her with his knife. Gid asks him if he's with her, but he reveals that he doesn't know her, so Gid becomes angry, but Rita suddenly arrives, and tells him he shouldn't use his sword in the city. So he decides to retreat, and Bell tries to check on the girl, but he realizes that she's already gone. The next day, Bell puts on his armor, and as he's walking through the town, he meets a girl named Lily, who asks him if he's looking for a supporter. He thinks she's the girl that he saved, but he realizes that she isn't, because her ears look different. He mentions that he was thinking about getting a supporter, and she asks him to choose her, because she's so poor that she doesn't have enough money to get by. She adds that he needs to take responsibility for touching her ears, so he becomes embarrassed, and he decides to hire her for the day. They go to the dungeon, and she watches him as he defeats the monsters, telling him his skills are impressive. She thinks it's all thanks to his knife, and he notes that he relies on it too much, telling her his goddess gave it to him. He asks her about the god she serves, so she reveals that she's part of the Hestia Familia, and she helps him collect the magic stones dropped by the monsters. After that, he goes to Ina and tells her about Lily, but Ina mentions that the members of the Hestia Familia seem desperate, so she isn't sure if Lily is the right match for him. She asks him what he thinks about Lily, so he mentions that she's great, since he got a lot of magic stones thanks to her. He prepares to leave, but Ina suddenly notices that he isn't carrying his knife, and he wonders if he dropped it somewhere. We see Lily trying to sell the knife, but the shopkeeper tells her it isn't worth much, because it can't even cut anything. She leaves the shop, but she runs into Cyr and Ryu, who notice that she's carrying Bell's knife. She tells them they're mistaken, but Ryu knocks the knife out of her hands, which makes her run away, but she bumps into Bell. Ryu and Cyr catch up to her, so Bell asks them if they've seen his knife, and he gets emotional when he sees that Ryu has it. He wonders where she found it, but she doesn't tell him that she got it from Lily, and after they leave, he tells Lily that he was also looking for her, asking her if she wants to accompany him to the dungeon. They head to the dungeon, but Lily notices that he doesn't have his knife with him, so he mentions that he's carrying it close to his arm, to make sure he doesn't drop it again. He asks her if she doesn't want any money for the contract, so she mentions that he can just give her a portion of the loot, telling him it's simpler since he's alone. After that, They trade in the stones for the day, and they're shocked by how much money that they made. Lily asks for her share, and she's shocked when he gives her half of it, wondering why he isn't trying to take all of it for himself. So he explains that she deserves to get half of it, because he couldn't have made so much money without her, telling her he wants to keep working with her. Meanwhile, we see Freya watching over Bell, and she decides to interfere with his life once again, because she wants to see the power hidden within him. At night, Hestia meets up with Mayak, and she starts to cry, telling him Bell is cheating on her, because she saw him with Lily. She gets drunk and starts getting out of control, but Mayak notes that Bell doesn't belong to anyone, and she mentions that she already knows that, but she doesn't want him to leave her. The next day, Bell realizes that Hestia is acting strange, so he asks her if something's wrong, but she mentions that everything's fine. He asks her when she's free from work, because he wants to take her out for a nice dinner, so that he can show his gratitude for everything she's done for him. She thinks he's inviting her on a date, so she agrees to go with him, but she decides to visit the divine bathhouse first. A god named Demeter joins her, and she wonders why Hestia is there, since she never visits the bathhouse, so she reveals that she's going on a date. Demeter can't believe she finally found a man, because she was hopeless in heaven, and Demeter tells everyone about it. She meets up with Bell, but before they can leave, a group of goddesses surround them, and they start to check Bell out, because they're curious who she's going on a date with. Demeter apologizes to Hestia, who's annoyed seeing how close Demeter is with Bell, so she grabs him and runs away. They spend the whole day hiding from the goddesses, but they end up on a spot with a beautiful view of the city, and Bell wishes to come back there with her, which makes her happy. At the guild, a girl tells Ina how the Soma Familia adventurers are arguing with the money exchange, which makes her wonder why they're all so desperate. We see a group of men taking away all the money Lily made, and they beat her up, telling her they're the only reason why someone as useless as her is part of the Soma Familia. The next day, Bell and Lily go to the dungeon, where he gets knocked to the ground, and an ant monster is about to attack him, but Lily shoots a fireball at it. He manages to defeat all the monsters, and he thanks her for saving him, telling her he would have been in serious trouble without her. After that, she asks him for a day of leave, because her familia is having a meeting, and she needs to be there no matter what. She knows that it's against her contract, so she's prepared to accept any penalty, but he notes that she doesn't need to worry about it, and he tells her to ask him whenever she needs time off. The next day, Belle goes to the restaurant to return Sear's lunchbox, and he wonders what she does in her free time, so she reveals that she reads books. He notes that the books Hestia has are too difficult for him to understand, but he sees a simple book in the restaurant, and Sear lends it to him. He goes home and starts reading the book, as he thinks about how in his mind, magic is just a tool to become stronger. It's like a flame, which doesn't suit someone like him, but he still wants it so that he can catch up to Eyes, and he also wishes that it could make him a hero. He falls asleep while reading, so Hestia wakes him up, and as she checks his status, she's shocked to see that he has finally developed a magic called Firebolt. Belle can't believe he'll finally be able to use magic, and Hestia mentions how he needs to chant a spell to use it, which is usually written next to the magic status. But there's nothing written there, which means he doesn't need to chant, and she tells him to try it on a monster in the dungeon. But after she falls asleep, he sneaks out of their house, because he can't wait to use magic. He goes to the dungeon, where he uses his firebolt to defeat a monster, and he's so happy that he keeps spamming it until he gets tired. He realizes that he's come far into the dungeon, and he's about to go back, but he suddenly falls unconscious. Eyes and Reveria arrive, and Reveria notes that Belle used too much magic, while Eyes mentions that he's the boy who was attacked by the Minotaur that escaped from them, so she wants to make it up to him. She puts his head on her lap, and as he wakes up, he's reminded of his mother, but after he realizes what's happening, he quickly runs away, which makes her wonder why he always does that. Belle returns to his house, and he can't believe that he ran away from Eyes again, but Hestia thinks he just had a bad dream because of the book he read. She tries to read it, but she's shocked to see that it's a grimoire, which allows its user to use magic according to their latent ability. She wonders where he got it from, so he explains that he just borrowed it from the restaurant, telling her someone forgot it there. But she reveals that it loses its power once it's read, so he thinks he's in trouble, and he's about to go back to the restaurant to find the person it belongs to, so that he can pay them back. But Hestia tells him it costs more than a top-grade item from the Hephaestus Familia shop, and Belle can't believe it. so she mentions that he should just tell everyone he didn't read it, and she promises to take care of the rest, but he stops her because he can't allow himself to do such a thing. Bell returns the book to Mia, and he tells her the truth, but she tells him he doesn't need to worry about it, because it's the owner's fault for leaving it behind. Meanwhile, Ina runs into Riveria and Loki, so she asks Loki about the Soma Familia, and she reveals that the Familia members worship wine instead of Soma. In the city, Bell is waiting for Lily, but he sees her being harassed, so he tries to help her. But Ged interrupts him, and he offers to work together with Bell to trap her, because he thinks Bell is also after the money she's saved up. But Bell pushes him away and refuses his offer, and Lily asks him what he was talking about with Ged, but he assures her that it was nothing. He wonders if she has a problem, because someone was harassing her, but she tells him it's nothing. We learn that her parents died in the dungeon trying to make money, so she had to do everything she could to survive, and she worked with adventurers from her familia. But anytime she asked them for something, they beat her up and treated her like trash, so she tried running away to start a new life. But they always found her and destroyed anything close to her, which made her hate adventurers. Meanwhile, Loki tells Ina that the wine she bought isn't the one that the Soma Familia members worship, and notes that they have a perfect product, but they refuse to sell it to anyone. She mentions that all the members of that familia are only there for the wine, and they get addicted once they drink it, which is why they're always desperate for money. After Loki leaves to upgrade Isa's status, Ina mentions that she's a weird god, but Riveria notes that she's way sharper than she looks, which is why they trust her. We see Bell telling Hestia that several bad adventurers are after Lily, so he wants to let her stay with them for a while, but Hestia doesn't think it's a good idea. She thinks Lily isn't trustworthy because of everything he said about her, and she tells him to think about the situation that happened with his knife. The next day, Lily proposes that they go to the 10th floor, but Bell doesn't think it's a good idea since he barely survived the 7th floor. She notes that she's been to the 11th floor, and she tells him he's strong enough to deal with the monsters, so he decides to go there. On their way, Lily gives a new weapon to Bell, because his knife doesn't have the range to fight huge monsters. Ina prepares to start her inspection of Babel, but she runs into Eyes, and she thanks her for saving Bell. Eyes wonders if he's afraid of her, but Ina assures her that he's grateful that she saved him, which makes her happy. They overhear a group of adventurers mentioning how Lily is about to set up a white-haired kid, and Ina thinks they're talking about Bell, so she asks Eyes for a favor. After that, Ina talks to Hestia, and she tells her about Lily, explaining that she's a dangerous person. We return to the dungeon, as Bell and Lily reach the 10th floor, where an orc appears in front of them, so he prepares to take it on. The orc picks up a tree and rushes towards Bell, but as they start fighting, Lily suddenly disappears. He slashes the orc's stomach and cuts off its leg, which makes it fall to the ground, and he stabs it to finish it off. He sees another orc coming towards him, so he uses his firebolt to defeat it, but as he looks around, he realizes that Lily is nowhere to be found, so he wonders if she was taken by a monster. He sees that there's bait around him to lure the monsters, and a group of orcs attacks him, so he tries to use his magic, but one of them sends him flying. He keeps looking for Lily, but he's shocked as she uses her arrow to steal his knife, and leaves him to be destroyed by the monsters. She uses her spell to remove her beast ears, and tells herself she's doing everything for her freedom, because she needs money to leave her familia. She tries to get out of the dungeon, but Gid suddenly trips her, and beats her to a pulp. He mentions how there are only a few ways out of the dungeon, so he and his companions were waiting on every path for her to show up. He tears off her clothes, and he's surprised to see that she has a magic weapon, but another adventurer named Kanu suddenly interrupts them. Gid recognizes him as one of his companions, but he attacks Gid with a killer ant, and tells him to leave all of her stuff there. Two other adventurers arrive, and Kanu tells Gid that a dying killer ant sends a signal to call for help, so he needs to escape if he wants to survive. He decides to run away, but he gets killed by ants, and Kanu tells Lily he'll protect her if she gives him everything she has. So she gives him a key to a safe where she has saved everything that she owns, but after getting what he needs, he throws her to the ants, telling her they no longer need her. The ants surround her, and she thinks she deserves to die because she betrayed Bell, who was always nice to her. She starts to cry, as she thinks about how pathetic she is, and she accepts her fate, but Bell suddenly comes to her rescue, and he starts burning the ants with his firebolts. We see Ina telling Hestia that she should convince Bell to fire Lily, but Hestia mentions that it won't work because he'll never abandon Lily. Bell defeats all the monsters, and he asks Lily if she's hurt, but she doesn't understand how he escaped from the orcs, so he reveals that another adventurer defeated all of them. Lily calls him stupid, because even though she betrayed him, he still went through so much trouble just to save her. She reveals that she even lied to him about the money she got after exchanging the magic stones, and when he told her to buy items, she also lied about their price. But he explains that no matter what she does, he'll always save her because she's a woman, and she's annoyed hearing this, but he notes that she's special, and tells her to talk to him whenever she's in trouble, because he'll always come to her rescue, which makes her cry as she apologizes for betraying him. After that, Bell meets with Ina, and apologizes for losing her protector, but she's just glad that he's fine. As Bell and Lily are walking in the city, he touches her ears, which makes her blush, and he's surprised that she can use transformation magic. She explains that she uses it so that her Familia members won't recognize her, and she wonders if he's okay with this situation since she betrayed him, but he tells her not to worry about it. He takes her to meet Hestia, and after he leaves, Hestia notes that she doesn't like her since she lied to Bell. She tells Lily to swear she'll never make the same mistakes again, and Lily promises that she won't betray Bell, because he's the one who saved her. Hestia knows that Lily is feeling guilty, because Bell doesn't blame her for anything, and she notes that she'll judge her on his behalf. Lily is worried about what Hestia will do, but she just tells her to look over Bell, and make sure he doesn't get scammed again. After Bell comes back, Hestia quickly grabs his arm, just to show Lily how close she is with him, but Lily refuses to back down, and she grabs him as well. He's embarrassed by what's happening, so he runs out of the house and goes to the guild, where he's shocked to see Ina sitting with Eyes. He tries to get away, but he runs into a man and falls to the ground, which allows Eyes to catch up to him, and Ina tells him that Eyes just wants to talk to him. After that, Eyes gives him the protector he lost while fighting the orcs, which makes him realize she was the adventurer who saved him. She notes that she wanted to apologize, since the Minotaur attacked him after it escaped from her, but he explains that he should be the one saying sorry, because he always runs away when he sees her. She's amazed by how quickly he's gotten to the 10th floor, but he thinks he still has a long way to go, because he still doesn't know how to fight, so she offers to teach him. The next day, Bell and Eyes meet up for his training, and she wonders if he knows martial arts. She realizes that he uses a knife to fight, so she tries to use it herself, but she has no idea how to wield it, and she accidentally kicks Bell in the face. She tells him they should just fight, and as he takes out his knife, she mentions that he needs to be sensitive to different things during battles. She knows he's a coward, and she thinks it helps him protect himself, but she can tell that he's afraid of something. He tries to attack her, but she blows him back, telling him to never lose focus, and as she hits him again, she mentions how he needs to make sure he doesn't have any blind spots. He rushes towards her, but she hits him with a flurry of attacks, which makes him fall to his knees. But he tells her he wants to continue fighting, and as he charges in again, he finally manages to dodge an attack, but she still hits him in the head. In the dungeon, we see a man named Ada defeating monsters, and as he comes across a Minotaur, he breaks its weapon with his bare hands, but he gives it a new sword. The Minotaur picks it up, and keeps trying to hit him, but he blocks all of its attacks. It uses its horns to push him back against a wall, but he breaks its horn, and returns the sword to the Minotaur. It continues to attack him, and as his sword finally breaks, he realizes that he was able to make it stronger. The next day, Bell and Lily go to the 10th floor, and she notices he's always tired even before they enter the dungeon. They come across a group of monsters, and they surround Bell, but Lily fights with a crossbow, while he uses the chance to attack them. He remembers how Eyes taught him to watch his blind spots, and he manages to defeat the monsters, but a group of orcs suddenly appears before him. He knows it might be difficult for him to beat them, so Lily wonders if he'll run away, but he decides to fight, because he won't be able to catch up to Eyes if he's always scared. After that, Bell goes to train with Eyes again, but he's no match for her as she keeps knocking him out. She wonders how he got stronger so fast, so he notes that there's someone he wants to catch up to, and he also needs to reach a place no matter what. She understands his feelings because she has the same goal, and she tells him it's time to practice napping because an adventurer needs to know how to fall asleep anywhere. They both lie on the ground, and he's shocked by how quickly she falls asleep. He hears his grandfather's voice telling him to kiss Eyes, but Hestia's voice mentions that she didn't raise him to become such a person, so he starts to feel conflicted. He resists the urge to kiss Eyes, and after she wakes up, she takes Bell to get food, but he's shocked because they end up going to the shop where Hestia is working. She's angry since she always sees him with different girls, but he tells her how Eyes has been training him. He asks for Hestia's permission to continue working with her, explaining that she'll leave for the Loki Familia's expedition after 2 days, and Hestia agrees to his request, but she tells Eyes not to get any ideas. In the dungeon, Kanu comes across the Minotaur Eyes was fighting, and he uses his magic weapon on it, but it has no effect, and the Minotaur finishes him off. Bell sees a poster about how Eyes defeated a floor boss on the 37th floor, and he's shocked as he realizes that she did it all by herself, because it usually takes a party of skilled adventurers to defeat the boss. He goes to train with her, and even though he can't even land a single hit, he continues because he wants to get closer to her level. The next day, as Bell is walking through the city, Sears suddenly grabs his arm and makes him wash dishes. Ryu decides to help him, and he asks her what she did to increase her level when she was an adventurer, so she tells him he needs to defeat a powerful opponent if he wants to get stronger. She notes that he needs skill and strategy to pull it off, but even that doesn't guarantee victory, so he needs to join a party, because they can compensate for each other's weaknesses. After that, Bell goes to train with Eyes, and he finally manages to keep up with her, but she still pushes him back. She mentions how it's their final day of training, and he thanks her for helping him, but she also thanks him since she had fun. Bell thinks he may never catch up to her since she's so strong, but he'll continue to work hard so that he can reach her level. Bell returns to his house, where he tells Hestia how his training has ended, and she notices something in his status, but he leaves without even looking at it. Meanwhile, the Loki Familia captain named Finn talks to everyone about their expedition into the dungeon. He mentions that they'll split into 2 groups to make sure they don't overcrowd the upper floors, and he notes that their goal is to get to the 59th floor, which has never been reached before. We see Bell and Lily inside the dungeon, and he can sense that someone is watching them, but even though she can't tell if it's true, she still thinks something is off about the floor. They realize that it's too peaceful, and Bell notes that this situation is similar to the day he was attacked by the Minotaur. As they move forward, the Minotaur that fought Ada suddenly appears, and Lily mentions that they need to escape. But Bell is too shocked to move, so she pushes him out of the way as it attacks them, and she ends up getting hurt. Meanwhile, we see 2 adventurers telling the Loki Familia how a Minotaur is present on the 9th floor, which makes them wonder if it's one of the few that escaped from the 17th floor. But Riveria doesn't think it's true, because it's been a month and there have been no sightings. Finn wonders if everyone is alright, and one of the adventurers mentions that the Minotaur is attacking a white-haired boy, which makes Eyes realize it's Bell, so she quickly runs to find him. Bell continues fighting the Minotaur, but he knows that he's no match for it, and Lily wakes up, so Bell tells her to run away. She doesn't want to leave him alone, but he makes her get to safety, and after she gets away, he thinks about escaping as well. But he knows that if he lets the Minotaur pass through, it will kill Lily, so he decides to hold it back and buy time for her to get out of the dungeon. The Minotaur slams the sword to the ground, which makes him jump up in the air, but it suddenly stabs him with its horn. It's about to finish him off, but Ice comes to his rescue, and he can't believe that she's about to save him again. He gets up because he knows that if he backs down from the fight, he'll never be able to grow, so he grabs Ice's arm and pushes her back. He approaches the Minotaur, while the other Loki Familia members also arrive, and Beta realizes that Bell is the same boy that Ice saved. He starts making fun of him, but another adventurer named Tiana tells him to stop, and she asks Ice if she's okay just watching the fight, because Bell won't survive. Beta mentions that they should leave him alone, since he's trying to be a man, and Lily begs Beta to save Bell, but she ends up falling unconscious. Beta decides to rescue him, but he's shocked to see that Bell is holding his own against the Minotaur, because he was completely helpless 1 month ago. He blocks all of its attacks, and Beta is amazed by how strong his knife is, but the others note that it's also because of how skilled he is. He hits the Minotaur with his firebolt, which surprises everyone, because he didn't chant a spell, but it isn't strong enough to defeat the Minotaur. As they continue to clash, Bell's sword finally breaks, but he stabs the Minotaur's arm, causing it to drop its weapon. He grabs it and slashes the Minotaur's chest, and as they rush towards each other, everyone thinks he'll die because he's too reckless, but Ice believes in him. He blocks the Minotaur's horn with the sword, and he stabs it with his knife, as he casts his firebolt to burn it from inside. Everyone can't believe he was able to defeat it, but he passes out while he's standing, and Beta tells Riveria to read his status. So she checks out his back, and she reveals that all of his abilities are rank S, which shocks everyone. At night, Hestia kisses Bell's head while he's sleeping, and congratulates him on his achievement, but she mentions that it's only the beginning of his story. After a while, Bell heads to the guild, where Ina wonders if something good happened to him, because he seems to be happy, so he reveals that he's reached level 2. He returns to his house, where Hestia upgrades his rank, but he doesn't feel like anything has changed. She reveals that he has a new skill called Argonaut, which makes him happy, but she teases him because the skill only appears when a person wants to be a hero. After that, Hestia prepares to go to the meeting of gods, and she reveals that it's where they will choose a title for the adventurers who have leveled up, so Bell will get a title as well. At the meeting, a god named Takazuki tells Hestia that all the gods are talking about Bell because he was able to level up in only a month, saying even I's took a year to reach level 2. She mentions how a member of Takazuki's Familia has also leveled up, and he notes that it's why he'll take the meeting seriously. At the house, Bell wonders what kind of title he'll get, and Hestia comes rushing in, revealing that he was given the name Little Rookie. He goes to the restaurant, where he tells Lily about his title, and he's bummed out because it sounds lame, but Seer mentions that she likes it. Ryu congratulates him on his achievement, and they join him to celebrate, revealing that Mia has given them permission to drink at the party. Bell notes that they're planning on going to the middle floors of the dungeon, but Ryu advises him not to go deeper than the 13th floor, because the monsters on the upper floors are dangerous. She tells him he'll need a party to go further, and an adventurer overhears them, so he invites Bell to join their party. But he mentions that he wants the elven girls in return, and Ryu warns him to stay away, but he tries to touch her, so she breaks his arm. He prepares to hit her, but Mia smashes a table and tells him to stop causing trouble, so he decides to leave. The next day, Bell goes to look for a new armor at Babel, and he asks the receptionist if they've stopped selling armor made by a blacksmith named Welf Crozzo, but he turns out to be standing beside Bell. Welf can't believe the little rookie everyone's talking about is looking to buy his armor, and Bell also feels lucky to meet him in person. Welf speaks loudly so that every other blacksmith can hear how Bell is his regular customer, and he offers to make a direct contract with him, which means Welf will only make items for him. But in return, he wants to join Bell's party, and he accepts Welf's proposal, so they head to the dungeon together. But Lily doesn't trust him, wondering why he isn't working with his Familia, and she's annoyed that Bell didn't consult with her before allowing Welf to join them. She's shocked to learn his Familia's name, because the Crozzos were famous for powerful magical items, but they suddenly lost all of their abilities. Welf notes that it isn't the time to talk about it, because they're being attacked by monsters, and he tells them to leave the orcs to him. Bell starts to fight the other monsters, as he realizes that his speed has improved, and he easily defeats his opponents. He sees a monster preparing to attack his companions, so he tells them to dodge, and he burns it with his fire bolt. Welf is amazed by how strong Bell is, and he realizes that his magic has also improved, so he thinks he's getting closer to Isa's level. Meanwhile, we see Beta and his teammates fighting a group of monsters, which makes the other members wonder why they're that fired up. So Riveria notes that Bell got under their skin, and Is joins the fight as well, as Riveria realizes that she's also fired up. Welf mentions how being in a party feels better, because it allows them to move freely, and they also have more room to breathe while fighting monsters. They notice that more parties are arriving, so they plan to leave once Lily gathers all the gems, but a baby dragon suddenly appears. It's about to attack Lily, so Bell tries to hit it with a firebolt, but something else comes out of his hands and kills the dragon in one hit. Bell tells Hestia about what happened, and she notes that it was his Argonaut skill, telling him that it allows him to overcome any obstacle. He wonders if she knows about the Crozzo family, and she reveals that she doesn't know much about them, but she's heard about Welf. She reveals that he's capable of making magic items, but his family thinks he's wasting his talent because he refuses to make them. The next day, Bell tells Welf they won't be going to the dungeon because Lily is taking a day off, so he takes Bell to his workshop to make new equipment for him. He wonders if Bell has a special request, but he mentions that he's okay with the light armor, so Welf tells him to be greedier. He looks around and picks up a sword, as he notes that it looks good, but Welf tells him nobody would buy it, and he knows that Bell is expecting it to be a magic item. He notes that Hestia was asking people about him, so he knows that she already told Bell about him, and he was worried that Bell would change his attitude because of it. He apologizes for testing him, and he sees that Bell is carrying a Minotaur horn, so he decides to make a weapon out of it. He reveals that he used to have a lot of customers, but he got sick of them because they all told him to make magic items, and he knows that they want him to create a tool that will make them famous. But he thinks that's not what a weapon should be, because it's supposed to be a part of its wielder, and it will never betray them no matter how bad the situation gets. But a magic item will shatter and leave its user behind, so he believes that neither a wielder nor a blacksmith can have pride in it, which is why he stopped making magic items. Welf makes a weapon out of the horn, and he knows Bell can't trust him completely since they only met a few days ago, but Welf asks him to treat him like a companion. The next day, Bell and the others go to the dungeon, and before they head into the 13th floor, Lily reminds them that the monsters there can attack from afar, so they always need to be on guard. She notes that they'll use a standard formation, where she'll be at the back while Welf is in front, but she tells them to remember that a supporter doesn't have the power to cover the back alone. Bell starts to laugh, so she wonders if he's even taking it seriously, but he's just excited because they're going on an adventure. Outside the dungeon, Hestia sees Takazuki seeing off his Familia members, and he notices that she's worried about Bell, so he tells her she needs to believe in him, because worrying won't do anything. On the 13th floor, a hellhound bites Bell's arm, and Welf cuts it in half, but he sees another one preparing to breathe fire, so Lily shoots it with her arrow, and creates an opening for him to finish it off. She thinks they should go somewhere open, but before they can leave, a group of monsters suddenly appears in front of them. Meanwhile, we see a girl named Asfi, who tells the god Hermes that Bell doesn't seem to be liked by other adventurers. There are rumors that he only defeated the Minotaur because he got lucky, and he even lied about how quickly he leveled up, but it only makes Hermes more interested in him. He wonders if it's making her jealous, so she explains that she just wants to avoid trouble, but he pats her head, telling her that all the members are grateful to her, and he depends on her as well. Inside the dungeon, we see that the group sent by Takazuki is in trouble, as one of their members has gotten seriously injured, so he's being carried by a man named Oka. Another member named Makoto eliminates the rabbits that are following them, but they see a pack of hellhounds approaching. They eventually run into Bell and the others, who are surrounded by monsters, but Oka decides to run past them, because he's more worried about the lives of his teammates. Bell sees them running away, and Lily mentions that they need to escape as well, because the monsters that were following Oka and the others will attack them. They try to get to safety, but Bell decides to fight the monsters to buy time, and he hits them with his firebolt, but a few of them jump over him and attack Lily. Bell and Welf defeat them before they can hurt her, but Welf's arm is injured, and they realize that monsters are blocking their path. So Bell remembers how Rhea told him that every little thing that happens in the dungeon eventually adds up, and the dungeon will show its true colors when they're on their last legs. The roof above them suddenly collapses, as monsters come flying in from above, and the falling debris injures both Welf and Lily, while a hellhound breathes fire at them. Meanwhile, Hestia goes to the guild, and tells Ina that Bell and his party haven't returned, so she wants to start a quest to find them, but Takazuki suddenly arrives with Makoto and Oka. In the dungeon, Bell and the others somehow survive after they fall down a couple of floors. They try to get out, but end up running into a dead end, so Lily proposes that they go to the 18th floor, which confuses them because they just got destroyed by the monsters on the 13th floor. But she reveals that the 18th floor is a safe zone, which means there are no monsters there. Welf is worried about the boss that appears on the 17th floor, but Lily thinks it must have been defeated by the Loki Familia's expedition team, so they might be able to cross before the boss respawns. They ask Bell to decide, and they assure him that they won't blame him if anything goes wrong, so he decides to follow Lily's plan. Meanwhile, Takazuki tells Hestia about what happened to Bell's party, and she notes that if Bell doesn't come back, she'll blame it on his Familia members. But she mentions that she'll never hate them, so she tells them to help her find him, and they promise to do their part. Hephaestus mentions how all the high-level members of her Familia are on the expedition, while Takazuki notes that he can send only 3 members, because the others will just slow everyone down. Hermes offers to help Hestia, and Hephaestus reminds him how he barely talked to her ever since they came down from heaven, but she notes that she needs all the help she can get, so she accepts his request. Asfi pulls him to the side, and she knows that he plans to go into the dungeon with her, so she reminds him that gods aren't allowed to enter the dungeon, but he notes that everything will be fine if no one finds out. Hestia overhears him and decides to go with him, because she can't wait for someone else to rescue Bell, and Takazuki once again apologizes to her, since he knows that his familia got Bell into trouble. But she tells him to forget about it, and she notes that Bell is still alive, because the blessing she gave him hasn't disappeared. Hephaestus asks Hestia to give Welf something on her behalf, while Hermes wonders if Asphi can protect him and Hestia, but she can't guarantee their safety, so he decides to take Ryu as well. In the dungeon, Lily is carrying a scent bag to make sure monsters stay away from them, but Welf complains about the smell, and she's annoyed since she's the one closest to it. A hellhound appears, and it breathes fire at them, but Welf uses his spell to return the flames to the hellhound's body, causing it to explode. After a while, the scent bag runs out, and a group of Minotaurs appears, so Bell rushes towards one of them, and cuts it up with his knife. He picks up the axe that the Minotaur was carrying, and activates the Argonaut's skill as he attacks, destroying all the Minotaurs in an instant. Welf is amazed by how strong Bell is, but they realize that he's exhausted, so Lily asks him if he's okay. Meanwhile, Hestia prepares to lead the search party into the dungeon, and before they enter, Ryu appears wearing her complete battle gear, as Hermes notes that she has decided to join them. The search party moves forward, and as Ryu and Asphi defeat the monsters in their path, everyone's surprised by how skilled they are. Oka notes that Asphi is considered the greatest item creator of their time, and she's said to be omnipotent, while Ryu seems to be on her level as well. They come across a cave-in, where Hestia finds Bell's knife, but his party is nowhere to be seen. Asphi mentions that since they lost their equipment and suffered injuries, they won't be wandering around the dungeon, and she thinks they must have gone to the safe zone on the 18th floor. Oka thinks they would be crazy to do that, but Hestia and Ryu agree with Asphi, so they decide to go to the 18th floor. Hestia asks Hermes why he's helping them, so he reveals that someone told him to check on Bell's progress, and he also wants to see if Bell is capable of taking them into a new era. Meanwhile, Welf and Lily's bodies finally give up, since they've been fighting monsters for such a long time, so Bell carries them to a hole and jumps down. They reach the 17th floor, and Bell remembers that Lily told them to get through there as quickly as possible, before the floor boss respawns. Bell tries to get to a passage while carrying them, but the boss respawns and starts attacking them. He tells himself to keep running no matter what, and the boss tries to grab him, but he manages to get through the passage before he gets hit. They all fall to the next floor, where Bell sees someone standing in front of him, so he asks them to save his friends. Bell wakes up in a room, and he's shocked to see Eyes sitting in front of him, wondering what she's doing there. So she notes that her group is returning from their expedition, and they decided to rest in the safe zone. He asks her about Lily and Welf, but he accidentally falls into her, which makes him embarrassed. He sees Lily and Welf resting beside him, and Eyes assures him that they'll be fine, because Reveria healed them. She takes him to meet Finn, who welcomes him as their guest. He reveals that a few of their companions were poisoned by a monster, so their fastest members have gone to the surface to get an antidote, and they won't be leaving until they cure their friends. Bell runs into Tiana and her sister Tiani, and she keeps calling him Argonaut because seeing him fight the Minotaur reminded her of an old fairy tale. Tiana praises his skills, but his face turns red when they get close to him, and they think he looks cute when he's blushing. After that, as he's walking through a forest with Eyes, he wonders where the light is coming from, since they're in a dungeon, and he sees that the sky is filled with crystals. At night, Welf and Lily wake up, and they apologize for slowing Bell down, but he notes that he couldn't have reached the 18th floor without them. Eyes invites them to dinner, where Finn tells everyone to treat them with respect, because they're brave adventurers who risk their lives for each other. As they eat dinner, Eyes gives a fruit from the 18th floor to Bell, but he finds it too sweet. Lily tells him to give it to her if he doesn't like it, but Welf eats it instead, which makes her angry. Tiana and Tiani surround Bell and ask him how they can make their abilities reach S rank, but he suddenly gets up because he hears Hestia's voice. She arrives at the 18th floor, where she immediately hugs Bell and starts to cry after seeing that he's okay, so he apologizes for making her worried. But Lily pulls her off of him, and she's surprised to see that Eyes is with them as well. Hermes introduces himself to Bell, and tells him to thank Oka and the others, because they wouldn't have found him without their help, but Lily and Welf are still angry at them. Makoto apologizes for their previous actions, but Lily notes that no matter what she does, it will be difficult to forgive them. Oka tells them to blame him for what happened, since he was the one who gave the order, but he still thinks it was the right decision. Bell agrees with him, because if Lily and Welf's lives were on the line, he would have done the same thing. Hermes notes that they should discuss what to do next, and Asfi mentions that they'll wait for the Loki Familia to defeat the 17th floor's boss. But they won't make their move for 2 days, so everyone has time to rest, and as they prepare to go to sleep, Hestia gives Welf the item that Hephaestus told her to deliver to him. While everyone's sleeping, Bell walks around the dungeon, and he's amazed by how beautiful the sky looks. Ice joins him, telling him she was worried about him, which makes him turn red, and she notes that he's always nervous. She offers to take him to the town, but Hestia suddenly arrives, and she's angry that he's making plans without her. She tells Ice she'll never allow her to go on a date with him, but Ice has no idea what she's talking about, and he notes that there's a misunderstanding. The next day, Hestia is tired as they're walking towards the town, and she's also annoyed that everyone else is coming with them, because she thought she was going on a date with Bell. He carries her since she's exhausted, and they come across a field of crystals, which amazes them with how beautiful it is. They reach the town, and as they look around, they're shocked to see how expensive everything is. Bell runs into an adventurer named Moldo, who invited him to join their party at the restaurant, and he plans to make Bell pay for how he treated him before, but they get scared and leave after seeing Eyes. Hestia buys a perfume, and Lily tells her she doesn't know how to spend money, but she mentions how Lily also bought a backpack, so she notes that they needed to get back to the surface. Hestia notes that she also needs the perfume, because Belle doesn't like sweaty girls, and Tiana invites her to the bathhouse, so the other girls decide to join them as well. Meanwhile, Beta returns to the dungeon with the antidote, but he's shocked to see Belle. Hermes tells Bell he needs to talk to him, but he takes him to peek at the girls taking a bath, which makes him embarrassed. He thinks it's wrong to peek at them, but Hermes notes that peeking is part of a man's romance, which makes Bell remember his grandfather. He still thinks they shouldn't look at them, but he accidentally falls into the water, and the girls see him, so he becomes embarrassed and runs away, but he ends up getting lost. He hears something nearby, and as he goes towards the noise, he sees Ryu bathing on her own. She notices him, so she throws a rock at him, which scares him and he immediately apologizes to her. After that, she takes him to put flowers on the grave of her familia, and she reveals that their enemy had set up a trap for them, which wiped everyone out, but she was the only one who survived. She was filled with rage, so she did everything in her power to eliminate the enemy familia, but she was blacklisted from the guild because of her actions. After she got her revenge, she was about to pass away in a dark alley, but Seer found her, and Mia let her in, even though she knew everything about her. She thinks she's a shameless and violent elf, who will break Belle's trust, but he tells her she shouldn't insult herself, so she mentions that he's worthy of her respect, because he's a kind person. At night, we see that Moldo is still angry at Bell, and he plans to get revenge on him, wondering how he can get him alone. The next day, Bella is angry at Bell, because he saw Eyes naked, so Tiana and Tiani hold him back. Eyes mentions that she's about to leave with the first party, so Bell tells her to take care, which makes Hestia annoyed at him. After that, Bell goes to find Hestia, but he sees a note from Moldo, which mentions that his group kidnapped her. He follows the instructions on the note, and goes to the place written in it, where he finds Moldo. He takes Bell to an open area, and assures him that Hestia is safe, telling him he wants to have a fair fight, so Bell shouldn't worry about his friends interfering. He notes that the winner gets to tell the loser what to do, and he plans on taking Bell's equipment after he's defeated, but Bell tells him to let Hestia go if he wins. As the fight begins, Moldo breaks a crystal with his sword, which makes him turn invisible, and he starts to beat Bell up. We see Hermes and Asfi watching the fight, and we learn that Hermes is behind everything, because he needs Bell to see the ugly side of humanity. Asfi wonders what he'll do if Bell loses all hope, but Hermes thinks that if it happens, it means Bell wasn't the right person for the job. Welf suddenly arrives with the others, and they start to clash with Moldo's party, while the two members guarding Hestia hear the commotion, so they decide to leave her and join the battle. Hestia is annoyed because they just left her there, but Lily suddenly arrives and sets her free, revealing that she used her sense of smell to find her. Meanwhile, Welf and the others overpower their opponents, but they still can't get close to Bell, because there are too many of them. One of them hits Welf, which makes him drop the item Hephaestus gave him, and a man prepares to attack him, but Ryu suddenly comes to his rescue. We see that Bell is still getting beaten by Moldo, but he blocks one of the attacks, which makes Moldo wonder if it was just luck. He tries to attack again, but Bell senses his presence and starts to dodge him as he analyzes his surroundings to find Moldo. Bell breaks his sword and kicks him in the head, which makes him turn visible, but he still pushes Bell back with his broken sword. Hestia suddenly arrives, and she releases her divine power, which scares Moldo and his companions, so they run away. She hugs Bell and starts to cry, because he got beaten up trying to save her, but he apologizes for failing to protect her. Lily thinks the fight is over, but the ground suddenly starts shaking, and a floor boss falls from the sky. The boss lets out a scream, which makes the other monsters go on a rampage, and they start to attack Moldo's party. Bell and the others rush to save them, and Ryu notes that he has failed as a leader, but he made the right choice. Moldo is surrounded by monsters, and he's about to get killed, but Bell comes to his rescue and cuts down the monsters. Lily drags him to safety, telling him he'll just get in Bell's way, and she notes that he should be thankful to Bell for saving him. Asfi tells a man named Voles to get everyone in town ready to fight, and they think they should just run away, but she explains that the exit has been blocked, so they can't leave without defeating the boss. Meanwhile, Ryu attacks the boss's leg, which makes it fall to its knees, while Oka and Makoto try to cut it down, but their attacks have no effect, and it stands up again. It starts to gather energy in its mouth, and Welf uses his spell to make it self-destruct, but the boss still prepares to attack, so Ryu kicks its face, causing it to miss. Asfi tells her that the mages are working on their incantation, and she needs to distract the boss until they're done, but Ryu leaves the task to Asfi. All the adventurers attack the boss, and even though it hits Voles with its energy blast, he's still okay thanks to the mages. Bell uses his knife to injure the boss, and the mages finally launch their combined attack, which covers the boss in flames, damaging its whole body. Its mouth breaks off as it falls to its knees, but everyone's shocked when it regenerates, and it smashes the ground to blow them away. Ryu and Asfi ask Bell to take care of the surrounding monsters, while they hold back the boss, so that the mages will have enough time to fire another shot. They rush towards the boss, and Ryu slashes its body, but she realizes that her attack can't reach its magic stone. The boss keeps firing shots from its mouth, so Oka tells his comrade Chigusa to give him a shield. She knows what he's up to, and notes that he'll die if he follows through with his plan, but he refuses to be someone who can't risk his life for others. Bell uses his firebolt to destroy half of the monster's face, but it still fires a shot from its mouth, which sends him flying. It's about to finish him off, but Oka suddenly comes to his rescue, as he tries to block the attack with his shield, but he gets blown away. He and Bell are seriously injured, but Hestia tells Ryu to face the monster, and buy as much time as possible, because she's sure that Bell will wake up and defeat it. Bell hears Hestia calling his name, and she tells him to get up, but his body refuses to listen to him. Hermes tells him a hero is someone who risks his life for others, which makes Bell remember how his grandfather told him that he'll become the coolest hero if he stays true to his wishes. Bell wakes up and takes a sword, and as he prepares to attack the boss, a bell goes off around the dungeon as his body begins to light up. Ryu continues to attack the boss, and Asfi is shocked to see her saying an incantation during such a high-speed fight. Asfi flies using her boots, and she burns the boss's eyes, while Ryu finishes her incantation and hits it with a flurry of attacks, but it still isn't enough to defeat the boss. It grabs onto her, but she's saved by Makoto, who uses her gravity barrier to try and bury it into the ground, but it manages to break free. Welf arrives, and he hits the boss with one of his magic swords, which causes a massive explosion, but the boss is still standing. Bell activates his Argonaut skill, and he rushes towards the boss, as Hestia notes that when he's faced with an opponent he can't defeat, he can resist it with his hero's strike. He swings his sword with all his might, and it covers the whole dungeon with a flash of light, as the boss's body is cut in half. Its magic stone is exposed, but everyone realizes it's about to regenerate, so Bell rushes towards it, and he stabs the stone with his knife, causing it to explode. Everyone celebrates their victory, while Hermes is glad to see that Bell was up to the task, and we learn that he's actually the grandson of Zeus, as well as the last hero of their familia. Hermes notes that things are about to change, and he's excited to see it with his own eyes, because history is about to be made, and he knows that people will talk about it for generations to come. we see Bell and the others being attacked by wolves, and he uses his knives to take them out, but one of them breathes fire, so Welf blocks the flames and cuts it down. Lily warns Makoto that she's about to get hit, but she easily takes out the wolves, and they're glad that she's with them, since they struggled in the middle floors when she wasn't in their party. She apologizes for putting them in a terrible position when they first met, so they tell her it's all in the past, but she notes that she can't forget about it. After that, they go to a bar, where Bell congratulates Welf for reaching level 2, and Lily mentions that the price of the items he creates will increase as well. So he notes that he can't make things that will embarrass his goddess, and Lily thinks he'll leave their party, since the only reason he was with them was to level up and get the forge skill. But he assures them that he isn't going anywhere, and she asks Bell if he's about to level up as well, so he tells her he still has a long way to go. A boy from another party suddenly starts insulting all of them, and Bell tries to ignore him, but he becomes furious when the boy calls Hestia useless. He mentions that Bell is angry since he's telling the truth, and Bell is about to attack him, but Welf hits the boy with his mug. They start fighting the other party, but one of them named Cleo, who belongs to the Apollo Familia, beats up both of them. He mentions that he's disappointed in Bell, and plans to make him pay for hurting his comrades, but as he starts to choke him, Betta tells Cleo to stop since he's ruining his night. So he lets Bell go and retreats with his comrades, while Betta warns Bell not to get cocky. After they return home, Hestia is glad that Bell got into a fight, but Lily notes that he isn't acting like his usual self, thinking it's because Hestia's bad behavior is rubbing off on him. He mentions that he couldn't control himself when they started insulting her, but she tells him to just laugh it off next time, since she doesn't like it when he gets hurt. The next day, Bell tells Ina about the fight, so she tells him to be careful, since a fight between two familias can turn the town into a war zone. As he prepares to leave, two girls from the Apollo Familia named Cassandra and Daphne give him an invitation to a banquet Apollo is holding. Bell delivers the invitation to Hestia, who mentions that she needs to attend the banquet, since she has a history with Apollo, but she plans to make Mayek and Takazuki come with her. They arrive at the banquet, where Hestia is surprised to see Takazuki with Hermes, but Takazuki mentions that he isn't happy to be with Hermes. He tells Takazuki not to act that way, since they work together to save Bell, and he starts showing off how good Asfi looks. She becomes embarrassed and tells him to stop, but he continues teasing her, so she sends him flying into a wall. Apollo comes out and tells everyone to enjoy the night, and Hermes sees Bell staring at him, so he wonders if Bell wants to talk to him. But he just thinks that he and Hestia should introduce themselves, and Hermes mentions that he has known Apollo for a long time. He notes that Apollo is an interesting person, who's always involved in a love affair, but he's extremely spiteful. Freya arrives and catches everyone's attention, but Hestia tries to stop Bell from looking at her, since she thinks it will make him fall under her spell. Freya comes to greet them and starts getting closer to Bell, but Hestia stops her and tells him that Freya is dangerous since she goes after every man she sees. Loki and Ais also arrive, but Hestia and Loki immediately start arguing with each other, and Loki notices Bell. She thinks there's nothing special about him, and notes that he's nothing compared to Ais, but Hestia disagrees and starts arguing with her again. After that, Bell heads to the balcony, where he thinks about how he's still uncomfortable in places like this, but he's surprised to see Cleo meeting with someone. Hermes joins him, and asks him why he became an adventurer, so he notes that his grandfather told him it would help him find a cute girl and everything he needs. Hermes asks him if he plans to dance tonight, but he reveals that he's never tried it, so Hermes tells him to follow his grandfather's words and get to know the girls there. Hermes asks Ais to dance with him, but before she can answer, he mentions that he needs to go somewhere else, but he can't leave her hanging. So he tells Bell to take his place, which shocks him, and Mayek notices that Bell has no clue how to ask Ais for a dance, so he shows him how to do it. Bell copies Mayek, and asks Ais to dance with him, so she gladly accepts his offer, but they both have no idea how to dance. Takazuki and Makoto give him tips, and they start dancing properly, but Hestia and Loki start losing their minds, since their favorites are dancing with each other. But Asfi stops them from ruining the moment, and we learn that Hermes ordered her to do it. Ais mentions that it's the first time she's dancing, which surprises Bell, and she thanks him since she's having fun. Apollo suddenly approaches Bell, so Hestia steps in front of him, and Apollo tells her that their children got into a fight. She apologizes for what happened, but he demands compensation since his children got hurt, so she tells him that Bell also got injured. Apollo shows her one of his children, whose body is covered in bandages, and she asks Bell if he really beat him up that badly, so he assures her that he didn't do it. She thinks it's all a setup, so she tells Bell they should leave, but Apollo challenges her to a war game, telling her he'll take Bell from her if he wins. Apollo just can't let Hestia have a cute boy like Bell all to herself, so she calls him a pervert, but he reminds her that they used to be in love. She tells him to stop lying, because she rejected him and never looked back, and she refuses to accept his challenge, but he tells her to really think about it since she'll end up regretting it. The next day, Bell and Hestia leave the house, but they're suddenly attacked by a group of people who try to blow them up. Bell protects Hestia, and they're able to survive the explosion, but she tells him that the men belong to Apollo's Familia. He can't believe that even though they didn't accept the war game, Apollo's Familia still decided to attack them in the middle of the town, and two of them rush towards him. So he defeats them with his knife, and he uses the smoke as a cover to carry Hestia and run away. The men keep following them, so Hestia tells him to go to the guild, since they'll be safe there. They reach a dead end, so he tells her to hold onto him tightly, and as he jumps on top of a building, they end up running into Daphne and Cassandra. Daphne tells him there's no point in running, because once Apollo sets his eye on a child, he never lets them go, no matter how much they try to get away from him. She reveals that it's the same thing that happened to her and Cassandra, and she advises him to give up, since she doesn't want to hurt someone who's about to join their familia. He refuses to surrender, so she throws a knife at him, while her companions rush toward him, but he uses his firebolt to blow them away. Cassandra notes that they should leave him alone, since she had a prophetic dream, and she thinks something bad will happen if they keep following him, but Daphne tells her to stop being silly. Meanwhile, Welf and Lily think something's wrong, since Bell is late for their meeting, and they hear people mentioning that the Apollo Familia has attacked him. Ice receives the same report, but before she can do anything, Finn warns her against helping the Hestia Familia. Bell and Hestia continue running away, and she apologizes for slowing him down, but he tells her it isn't her fault. He stops and defeats the men who are catching up to them, but he notices Cleo standing in front of him, and he immediately attacks Bell, who manages to block his attack, but he gets pushed back. Cleo is surprised that he made it that far, and Bell struggles to defend himself as Cleo continues to attack him. At the guild, Ina tells the guild master to stop the Apollo Familia, since fighting isn't allowed in the town. But he notes that he can't do anything, because Apollo's Familia will just pay the fines they'll get for their actions. Meanwhile, Cleo notes that he hates Bell, but he'll allow him to join their Familia, since it's what Apollo wishes for. Bell rushes towards him, but he easily dodges his attack and slashes his chest, and Cleo kicks him while he's down. He doesn't understand what Apollo sees in Bell, and he decides to cut off Bell's arm, since it can be healed before he's given to Apollo. But a girl named Naza starts shooting arrows at him, allowing Bell and Hestia to get away. As they try to get to safety, they run into even more of Apollo's children, and one of them knocks Bell down with his lightning, but Makoto arrives with her party and starts fighting them. Welf and the others arrive as well, and Mayak uses a potion to heal Bell's injuries, but as he tries to help Makoto and the others, they tell him to get to safety and leave everything to them. He tries to get to the guild, but he runs into more enemies, so Lily and Welf decide to take care of them, telling Bell and Hestia to make sure they reach the guild. After they leave, Lily asks Welf if he'll be okay without Bell, but he assures her that there's nothing to worry about. Two of the enemies try to go after Bell, so Lily takes them out with her arrows, but she's shocked as a man named Xanis appears in front of her. Welf asks her why she isn't providing him backup, but she tells him she's going back to the Soma Familia, which confuses him. Meanwhile, as Hestia and Bell are hiding, Cleo tells them that no matter what they do, they'll never have a moment of rest. Hestia tells Bell that they can either fight an unwinnable battle, or leave Orario together, telling him she won't mind running away with him. She admits that she likes him and wants to be with him forever, but he tells her that he only respects her, which makes her annoyed. The enemies find them, so Bell picks her up and runs away, but she's angry that they interrupted her when she was about to tell him how she feels. They go to the Apollo Familia's house, where Hestia takes a glove from one of his children and throws it at his face, telling him she's accepting his challenge to a war game, which makes everyone excited. After that, Welf catches up to them, and mentions that Lily was taken by the Soma Familia. But before Bell leaves to save her, Hestia tells him that she'll buy them time before the war game, so he needs to get stronger before it begins. Bell goes to meet Eyes, but the guards don't let him enter, since they think he's there to ask her to join his familia for the war game. Tiana arrives and grabs him by the collar, telling him to get lost, but it's all an act, and she secretly gives him a location, where he meets up with Eyes and Tiana. Eyes mentions that she has heard about the war game, and her familia thinks they shouldn't help him, but she believes that it's wrong to abandon him. He notes that he wants to win the war game, so he asks her to train him, and she and Tiana both agree to help him. We see Xanis taking Lily to meet Soma, and he mentions that she's agreed to serve their familia, but she asks for Soma's permission to leave them, which annoys Xanis. He tells her that if she wants to leave, she needs to pay them 10 million Valis, which shocks her since she doesn't have that kind of money, but Soma doesn't care and tells him to handle everything. After that, Xanis throws her behind bars, and calls her stupid for trying to plead her case to Soma, since he's only worried about making alcohol. He reminds her that the only reason he stopped his troops from helping the Apollo Familia is because she agreed to come with him, which makes her wonder what he needs from her. He reveals that he knows about her rare transformation magic, since Soma told him everything about her, and he tells her she'll spend the rest of her life serving him. At the restaurant, Anya notes that Hestia didn't show up to the meeting where they were supposed to set the rules for the war game, which makes her wonder if they have run away. But Seer doesn't believe Bell will back out, and everyone hopes that she's right. Meanwhile, Hestia tells the others where Lily is being held, and she thinks they should attack it at night, since it won't be guarded heavily during that time. Oka notes that she should spend her time thinking about how to win the war game, because even if they rescue Lily, she won't be allowed to fight for Hestia, since she's from a different familia. But Hestia explains that Bell won't be able to fight at his full strength if he's worried about Lily, and she also promised him that she'll save her, so she can't go back on her word. At the meeting of the gods, Apollo is angry that Hestia hasn't shown up, so Takazuki and Mayak mention that she isn't feeling well, since he had his children chase her all over town. Loki wonders if she's planning on running away, so Apollo notes that he'll just tell the guild that Hestia has withdrawn, but she arrives at the last moment. He reminds her that he'll take Bell if he wins, while he'll accept any condition if she's the winner, and Loki tells them to choose the rules of their battle. Hestia proposes that they choose one representative from their familia to fight each other, but Apollo rejects the idea, and calls her lazy for only having one member. He tells all the gods to submit their ideas, so that they can select one at random, and they choose Hermes to be the one who picks out of the lottery. He ends up selecting the siege option, which shocks Hestia, since it's the worst possible outcome for her. Hermes thinks it's extremely unfair, since Hestia only has Bell, so he notes that she should be allowed to select other people to fight for her, but Apollo is against the idea. Freya asks him if he's scared, and all the other gods start pressuring him, so he allows her to select only one helper, who must be from outside Orario, which makes everyone think he's petty. After that, Hestia tells Takazuki and Mayak that she has someone in mind, but she needs to save Lily before she does anything. Meanwhile, Xanis tells Lily that he'll use her to earn a fortune, so she calls him greedy, but he thinks there's nothing wrong with it. He loves his familia, since his god doesn't care about his evil nature, so he can do anything he wants without getting punished. A man named Chandra reports that Hestia is attacking them, and Lily notes that she won't help him if he hurts Hestia. But he threatens to make her drink Selma's wine, which will make her addicted to it, and her addiction will turn her into an obedient slave. After he leaves, Chandra throws the keys to Lily, telling her he doesn't like Xanis, so she can do whatever she likes and he'll act like he didn't see anything. She gets out of jail and sees her friends fighting, so she tells them to leave, but Hestia refuses to go without rescuing her. She tells Lily she accepted the war game against the Apollo Familia, so Bell is working hard to get stronger, but he's only training since he believes that Lily will come back. She can't believe people are depending on someone like her, so she goes to Soma's room and asks him to end the fight, but he refuses to listen to her. He pours her a cup of his wine, and tells her that if she can drink it and say the same things, he'll listen to her request, so she drinks it, but she immediately gets drunk and falls to the ground. She's about to become completely addicted to it, but she remembers Bell, which makes her cry, and she once again asks Soma to end the fight. Xanis arrives and notes that Soma doesn't need to listen to her, but he tells Xanis to be silent, and orders everyone to stop fighting. Xanis can't believe what he's seeing, since Soma never does anything, but he refuses to let Lily get away. He tries to attack her, but Naza shoots an arrow at his foot, while Welf rushes forward and uses his sword to knock him out. Before they go back, Lily asks Soma to let her lead his Familia, so he agrees to her request, and Hestia makes her one of her children. He wonders if she's really a child he gave his blessing to, so Hestia mentions that Lily got stronger because he threw her out, and tells him to think about why she changed. Lily thanks everyone for rescuing her, but Mayak reminds her that the war game hasn't even started yet, and she knows that the Apollo Familia is much stronger than they are. The next day, Takazuki is anxious because even though he wants to help Hestia, he can't make that decision on his own, but Makoto arrives and asks for his permission to join Hestia's Familia. Welf asks the same thing from Hephaestus, who reminds him that his goal is to make weapons more powerful than the magic swords, but he thinks he can do it anywhere as long as he's passionate about it. He reminds her that she was the one who taught him that, and she wonders why he's willing to go that far, so he mentions that it's because of his friends. We see Hermes asking Rhea to help Hestia and Bell, since she's the only one who meets the requirements Apollo set, and he assures her that he'll make sure no one finds out who she is. Meanwhile, Bell is training with eyes, but he still can't land a hit on her, and she tells him that fighting humans is completely different from hunting monsters. She notes that monsters are always serious, but humans will see the way he's fighting and react to it. So when someone thinks they've found an opening, it becomes easy to predict their next move, and she tells Bell that it's the reason why she can counter his attacks. After Bell returns from his training, Hestia sees him off to the war game, and as he's going through the city on a carriage, Seer runs after him and gives him a good luck charm. Meanwhile, we see Cleo in the castle that has been chosen for the game, but he finds it boring that he needs to wait for the enemy to attack them. Cassandra tells Daphne about another one of her dreams, where she saw that the castle will fall, but Daphne isn't worried about it. She mentions that they can win the game by protecting their commander Cleo for 3 days, or by defeating the enemy commander. She thinks there's no way they can lose with such rules, but Cassandra still thinks they're all doomed. The next day, all the gods meet up to watch the war game, and Loki sees that everyone in the city is excited. So Hephaestus mentions that the war games are like an industry in Orario, but she's sure that the children who were selected to fight hate it. Apollo arrives and asks Hestia if she has said her goodbyes to Bell, because after he wins, he plans to make her leave Earth. Asphi tells Hermes that the game is about to begin, so he uses his powers to start a live broadcast, which everyone in the city watches. At the castle, the Apollo Familia members think that since they have 3 days, the enemy won't attack them immediately, but they're surprised to see Rhea rushing towards them. She hits the castle with a wind blast, and the archers try to shoot her down, but she uses a magic sword to attack with fire. Apollo thinks their strategy is decent, but notes that he has 100 soldiers, while Hestia only has 5, so he thinks she doesn't stand a chance. Rhea keeps blasting the castle walls with her flames, so a boy named Luan tells the other members that Cleo is ordering 50 of them to go out and defeat her. They're surprised because it's half of their forces, but he notes that if fewer people went out to fight her, they would easily be defeated. As they go outside, Rhea hits them with her fire slash, but her magic sword reaches its limit, and it finally turns to dust. She uses her other sword to attack them with her lightning, but it also crumbles to pieces, and she takes out her wooden sword to fight them. One of them, named Lissos, notices that she's an elf, and he's annoyed that she's using magic swords, because it's what destroyed their village. But she explains that she doesn't care about it, as long as she can use it to help her friends. He tries to attack her, but she easily defeats him, so everyone becomes afraid of her, but they still try to attack. While everyone's distracted by Ryu, Makoto quickly gets inside the castle, where the archers try to shoot her down, but she blocks all of their arrows. She keeps moving forward, and as she comes across even more enemies, she uses her gravity spell to push them to the ground, which impresses everyone watching the fight. Hermes is surprised by how fast the Apollo Familia is reacting, which means someone must be telling them everything. But he mentions that even though information is key during a battle, it can also lead to defeat if it isn't true. Apollo is surprised to see Luan opening the gate, allowing Bell and Welf to enter, and we learn that Lily disguised herself to infiltrate the castle, while the real Luan was kidnapped by Mayak. Daphne realizes that the enemy has entered the castle, so she tells everyone to prepare for battle, and Bell appears in front of them. So the mages prepare to attack him, but Welf uses his skill to destroy all of their spells, and Bell manages to get past them. Daphne tries to go after him, but Welf stops her and challenges her to fight him. Meanwhile, Cassandra begs Cleo to escape, but he pushes her away, telling everyone to defeat Bell. but he orders them to make sure they don't kill him, since he wants to be the one to finish him off. We see Bell thinking about how he only made it that far because of his friends, and it's time for him to make sure their efforts aren't in vain. He uses his firebolt to destroy the ground of Cleo's room, and it blows up everything around him. Bell charges at Cleo, who tries to counter with his sword, but Bell dodges and breaks it in half. Cleo can't believe how much faster he has become, since he was nowhere near that level the last time they met, and he tries to hit Cleo again. But Cassandra suddenly grabs him, so Cleo uses the chance to throw a ring of light at him. He manages to dodge it, but it keeps following him, so he tries to stop it by burning it with his firebolt, but it hits him and blows him up. Everyone thinks the fight is over, but Bell stands up even though he's badly injured, and Cleo is amazed that he was able to survive his attack. He takes out his knife and rushes towards Bell to finish him off, but he suddenly remembers what I's told him. He kicks the knife out of Cleo's hand, and he manages to knock him out. So everyone celebrates as Bell wins the war game. Apollo can't believe what just happened, and Hestia reminds him that he agreed to do anything she wants if she won. So she notes that she'll take all of his properties, while his familia will split up, and she also banishes him from Orario. After that, Bell and the others return to Hestia, who shows them Apollo's mansion, telling them it's where they'll be staying. But she notes that there's still a lot of work to do, and before doing anything else, she makes an emblem for their familia. Lily goes to meet Soma and thanks him for everything he's done for her, and as she's about to leave, he tells her to take care of herself, which brings her to tears. After that, Hestia takes her to their new home, where she raises a toast for winning the war game, and she also congratulates Bell for reaching level 3. They all think he should be their commander, so Hestia tells him to give a speech, but he just tells them how happy he is that they have joined his familia. They all mention how shocked they were when they first came there, since the whole house was filled with statues of Apollo. But Hestia notes that she remodeled the whole place thanks to the god of architecture, and reveals that she added the facilities they wanted, which makes them excited. Makoto goes to enjoy the bathhouse she requested, while Welf checks out his new workshop, but Lily thinks Hestia must have spent a lot of money on the renovations. So she notes that she wanted to make Welf and Makoto feel welcomed, since they decided to join her familia on their own. Bell is surprised by how big the house is, and Hestia wonders if they should hire maids, but she sees him fantasizing about them, so she changes her mind. Bell notices Cassandra and Daphne standing outside, so he asks them what's going on, and Cassandra mentions that she's looking for her pillow. He asks her if she knows where it is, and she reveals that she doesn't remember where she placed it, but she saw in a dream that it's in the house, so he goes to look for it. He manages to find it, so she thanks him for believing her, and she whispers something to Daphne, who notes that they'll be back tomorrow. They tell him Hestia is recruiting people for her familia, which shocks him, and he asks Hestia about it. So she explains that since their reputation is at an all-time high, they need to take advantage of it and recruit people, so they can become one of the top familia. The next day, all the people who are interested in joining them arrive at the house, which excites both Hestia and Bell. Lily starts making a list of people she should be worried about, and she rejects all the good-looking girls, since she can't risk Bell falling for them. Hestia thanks everyone for showing up, and notes that she'll conduct one-on-one interviews, but Makoto arrives with a debt slip, which shows that Hestia has 200 million in debt. She can't believe Makoto found it, and she tries to explain it to everyone, but they all immediately leave. Welf takes a look at the slip, and he notices that she owes 200 million to Hephaestus for making Bell's knife, and he can't believe that it's worth that much. She mentions that she forgot about the debt, since Hephaestus was deducting it from her paycheck, and she tries to laugh it off, but everyone is still annoyed at her. Welf notes that all they can do is take on more quests, but she refuses to let them help, since she wants to repay it herself. After Bell wakes up, Welf takes him to the bathhouse, where Hestia overhears their conversation, but Makoto and Lily also arrive, so she tells them to stay quiet. Bell thanks Welf for joining Hestia's familia, and he mentions that he never thought they would end up living together, because the first time he met Makoto, she led a group of monsters to attack them. But after that, she has been helping him at every turn, and he knows that he needs to thank everyone else as well. He thinks he would never have become an adventurer without Lily, while Hestia is the one who found him, so everything happening to him is a gift from her. He knows a few people call her useless, but she's the most important person in his life, and he considers her the best goddess. He feels like even though everyone else has been helping him, he hasn't been doing anything for them, but Welf assures him it isn't true, telling him it's their job to support each other. Hestia starts to cry and tries to go over to the men's side of the bath, but Makoto and Lily stop her, since she isn't wearing any clothes. At night, Hestia mentions that she was trying to show off earlier, but she can't pay off the debt on her own, so she asks everyone to help her, and they all agree to do their part. After that, Chigusa knocks on their door, so Makoto tells her to come in, but she says something to Makoto, which leaves her shocked. Makoto tells everyone she's going to bed early, but as she tries to sneak out, Bell and the others start following her, because they think she's been acting weird. She meets up with Chigusa, and they go to the pleasure quarter. Lily doesn't understand what Makoto is doing there, since it's the last place she would want to visit, while Bell is shocked seeing everything around him. As they keep moving forward, the women there try to get Bell to spend the night with them, but Lily makes sure no one can get to him. They notice Makoto and Chigusa being surrounded by men, but as they go to save them, a woman grabs Bell and separates him from the others. Welf and Lily save Makoto and Chigusa, and he reminds Makoto that they're in the same familia, so she should tell them everything. She notes that Chigusa told her one of their childhood friends might be working there, and they wanted to see her with their own eyes before discussing it with the others. Lily thinks it isn't a good idea to stay there, so they should leave immediately, but they're shocked when they realize that Bell isn't with them. We see that he's lost, and he starts walking around, but he's surprised as he runs into Hermes, who makes him promise never to tell anyone that he saw him there. He gives Bell an aphrodisiac as a reward, which shocks him, and he tries running after Hermes to give it back, but he almost runs into a woman named Aisha. She grabs and asks him if he wants to buy her for the night, but her friends recognize him, so she holds him close to her, telling them she found him first, and she won't let anyone else have him. He tries to tell them he's just looking for his friends, but they don't believe him because of the vial that Hermes gave him, which makes them think he's there to have fun. They take him into a building, where a goddess named Ishtar asks Aisha if she has found her prey for the night. But all the girls tell Ishtar to stop looking at him, since she'll end up charming and stealing him from them. She mentions that she has a guest coming, so she doesn't have time for inexperienced little boys, and he realizes that he's in the Ishtar Familia's house. He remembers the time Ina told him that the Ishtar Familia is one of the most powerful in Orario, but she also warned him to stay away from them. Aisha tells him that all the rooms are filled at the moment, so he needs to wait for a while, and he asks the girls if it isn't a problem that he belongs to another familia. They reveal that it happens every single night, telling him that the Amazons kidnap men and have their way with them, which makes him afraid of the girls. A huge woman named Fern also recognizes Belle, and she tries to have her way with him, but the rest of the girls stop her, since she'll end up ruining him. She thinks she's prettier than all of them, and Belle tries to escape while they're arguing, but they notice him, and note that whoever catches him first will win. He tells himself to make sure he doesn't get caught, or else he'll never return to his normal self, and he goes into a random room, where a girl named Haruhime welcomes him, thinking he's a customer. She takes him to a bed, so he tries to stop her, but they both end up falling down. She realizes that it's his first time, so she tells him to relax while she takes care of everything, but as she starts taking off his clothes, she can't believe she's seeing a man's body and falls unconscious. After she wakes up, she apologizes for thinking he's a customer, and he mentions that he's trying to get away from Aisha and her friends, but she thinks he can't escape since it's his first time there. She offers to show him a shortcut at dawn, but in exchange, she tells him to talk with her until it's time for him to go. She reveals that she's from the Far East, and after her family disowned her, she was bought by the Ishtar Familia, but she always wanted to come to Orario, since she's heard stories about it. We see Hermes delivering a box to Ishtar, who tells him to make sure no one knows about it, and he asks her what she plans on doing with it, so she notes that she'll just show him something interesting. She asks him if he has any more useful information, but he has nothing to tell her, so she takes off her clothes and turns off the lights. Meanwhile, Belle and Haruhime keep talking about the hero stories, and she wishes that a hero would come and take her away, but she knows that she doesn't deserve it. He tells her a hero will never ignore her, but she notes that she's someone who has sold her body for money, and she believes that a hero won't save a filthy girl like her. She thinks she lost the right to read the beautiful stories, since she's no longer pure, and she notes that it's time for him to go, so she thanks him for spending time with her. She shows him the road that will let him get out, and he starts running away, but Aisha notices her and tells her to go back inside. As everyone returns home, Hestia can't believe Bell spent a whole night in the pleasure quarter, and she thinks he must have done something wrong since she found the potion that Hermes gave him. But since he promised Hermes he wouldn't tell anyone about him, he just assures her that he didn't do anything. She believes him since she knows that he can't lie to her, but she's still angry at him, so she tells him to help the neighbors as a punishment. As Bell starts cleaning, he notices a few kids pretending to be heroes, which makes him remember Haruhime. Lily and the others come to help him, since they feel responsible for taking him to the pleasure quarter, and Makoto apologizes since it's all her fault. Bell asks her what she was doing there, so she explains that she was trying to find her friend, and he asks her if she's referring to Haruhime. She's sad to learn that Haruhime is really working in such a place, but Lily tells Bell that he shouldn't get any ideas about saving her, since it would put a burden on Hestia. Welf tells her she doesn't need to act like a villain, which makes her embarrassed, but he and Makoto also agree with her. We see Hermes begging Mia to deliver a message to Freya, since it's a life and death situation for Bell, and he tells her that Bell has caught Ishtar's eye. Seer overhears their conversation, and asks him if he was the one who sent Bell to the pleasure quarter, so he assures her that he did no such thing. Meanwhile, Bell goes to meet Ina, who notices that something's wrong with him, so he tells her everything that happened. She's shocked to learn about it, and yells at him to never go to such a place, but he asks her about the Ishtar Familia. So she reveals that they're high-ranked in both financial status and dungeon accomplishments, since most of the Amazons that fight are at least at level 3. Their captain Fern is a level 5 rank 1 adventurer, and Ina reveals that she almost beat Eyes, which shocks him, but she notes that it was a long time ago when Fern was much stronger. He asks her if she knows Aisha and Haruhime, and she reveals that she has heard about Aisha, but she has no idea who Haruhime is. Ina tells Bell that 5 years ago, the Ishtar Familia was accused of hiding the strength of their members, so the guild looked into it, but they didn't find anything. So Ishtar made sure her accusers were penalized, which led to a lot of familias being destroyed. She also made the guild pay a fine, and after that, the guild was put in a bad position, so they no longer had control over what happened in the pleasure quarter. He realizes that the Ishtar Familia is dangerous, and she tells him to stay away from them, since they're a lot scarier than they look. After Bell leaves, he goes to a library, where he reads a book about a hero who lost his dignity because of a woman of the night. But he regained his honor by eliminating her, which makes him remember what Haruhime said to him. In the pleasure quarter, Aisha notices that something's wrong with Haruhime, but she notes that she was just having a dream that will never come true. Aisha gives her candy from the Far East, so she thanks Aisha for always being kind to her, but she tells Haruhime she doesn't need to thank her for every small thing. Makoto suddenly appears in front of her and tries to talk to her, but Haruhime acts like she doesn't know Makoto. The next day, Makoto tells Bell what happened, and he asks her what Haruhime was like when they lived in the Far East, so she mentions that Haruhime is the reason she received Takazuki's divine blessing. She notes that she used to live with Chigusa and Oka in a shrine, while Haruhime lived in a mansion since she was a noble, and the first thing she ever asked her father was to give food to the shrine. It led to their first meeting, but she always looked lonely, so Takazuki decided to help her. Makoto also wished to remove her loneliness, so they started sneaking into her mansion to break her out every night, and she was happy to see that Haruhime was finally smiling. After that, they came to Orario to make money, so they could send it back to the shrine, but Makoto heard a rumor that Haruhime was deceived by someone and sold to a slave trader. She starts to cry, since she wants to save Haruhime, so Bell decides to help her. They see Hermes listening to their conversation, so they tell him about Haruhime, and he advises them against breaking her out, because it will lead to a war. He explains that since she's a night worker, they can just buy her, but he mentions that it might be difficult if she's a fighter, since the Ishtar Familia won't let her go so easily. But Bell notes that she's a non-combatant, so Hermes tells them they can buy her for 2 to 3 million Valis. He asks them to tell them more about her, so that he can ask Ishtar about it, but he's surprised when they mention that she's a Renard. He reveals that when he ran into Bell, he was delivering an item called the Killing Stone to Ishtar, but he refuses to tell them anything else. We see Ishtar telling her Familia members to kidnap Bell, and notes that even though Freya is interested in him, she never does anything. Ishtar tells Fern not to taste him, or else he'll become useless, and notes that the girls can do whatever they like after she's finished with him. She reminds them that the full moon is coming, so they'll perform the killing stone ritual, and she notes that they'll declare war on Freya when it's over. Ishtar thinks it's easier to provoke her if they have Bell with them, but tells the girls not to capture him in public, since she doesn't want the Hestia Familia to find out about it. Meanwhile, Bell and the others are busy defeating monsters in the dungeon, and Lily warns them that the pantry up ahead is full of starving monsters, but Makoto doesn't care. Welf notes that even though he was harsh on Bell earlier, he'll stand by him till the end, and Lily still doesn't agree with their plan, but she isn't against making money in the dungeon. Welf asks Bell if he found out anything about the killing stone, but he notes that even Hestia didn't have any information on it, and he wonders if it has something to do with Haruhime. We see that Fern and the others are also in the dungeon, and they think it's the perfect place to kidnap Bell, because no one will see them there. Bell and the others arrive at the pantry, but they're surprised by the number of monsters, and Lily tells everyone to stay together. Aisha suddenly pulls Bell away, and she starts attacking him, so he blocks her attacks, but she still manages to knock him down. Makoto suddenly comes to his rescue, but Aisha blows her away, and he tries to attack her, but she sends him flying into a wall. He dodges her attack and tries to counter, but she grabs onto him and drags his body across the wall. As he's lying on the ground, Fern arrives and knocks him out, while Haruhime falls to her knees after seeing him. As Bell wakes up, he finds himself being held captive, and he screams as he sees Fern approaching. We see Aisha telling everyone to find out where Fern is hiding Bell, but Haruhime overhears her, so she goes to see Makoto and gives her the keys to her cell. Bell tries to break free, but Fern licks his face and tells him that no one is coming to save him. She suddenly grabs him below the belt, but she's disappointed, so she goes to bring him medicine that will make him fall for her. After she leaves, Haruhime arrives and frees him, so he cries and hugs her, because he was scared for his life. Everyone else keeps looking for Bell, while Makoto uses a spell to find him, but she realizes that he isn't in her range. Meanwhile, as Fern returns to the room, she's angry that Bell is no longer there, and she knows that Haruhime is the one who set him free. Haruhime shows Bell a secret path to escape from the building, but he's worried about Makoto, so she tells him she already helped her escape. He knows she'll be in trouble if anyone finds out she helped him, but she mentions that Fern is already aware of it, since she's the only one who knows where the room is. She tells him he shouldn't worry about it, and notes that it's the last thing she'll ever do for herself, telling him the others will forgive her. He tells her they're planning to buy her, which makes her cry, and she's glad there are people who care about her, so she has no more regrets. Meanwhile, Lily tells everyone that she saw Amazons at the spot where Bell and Makoto went missing, and Chigusa thinks they were kidnapped since the girls didn't want them to buy Haruhime. But Lily can't imagine why a big familia like Ishtar would try to protect such a minor member, and Hestia remembers Bell asking her about the killing stone, which shocks Takazuki. He notes that it's a forbidden magic item used to seal the soul of a Renard, and mentions that it allows its user to use powerful Renard magic called Jujutsu. He adds that the stone is even stronger than a magic sword, since even its single fragment has power, and he tells them that after a Renard's soul is sealed, the killing stone breaks into pieces. But he explains that it can never be restored, so the soul is also lost, and he reveals that a ritual must be performed during the full moon to use it, which means everything will go down tonight. We see Haruhime telling Bell to run away after she takes him outside, and he's worried that something might happen to her. But she explains that she can't escape, since she's wearing a choker that gives her location to Ishtar. Makoto joins them, and we learn that she found out what the killing stone is for, so she calls Haruhime an idiot, and tries to tell her not to sacrifice herself, but Aisha suddenly takes her away. Bell asks her what they're after, so she reveals that they plan on starting a war with Freya's Familia, and she knows that they can win thanks to Haruhime. But Bell doesn't understand how she can help them win, so Aisha reveals that she has the power to boost their level, and she's about to be sacrificed to make everyone stronger. Bell can't believe what he's hearing, and he asks her if they don't think it's wrong to use Haruhime like a tool. But Aisha warns him that if he tries to take her away, they won't hesitate to start a war with his familia. She reveals that she hated Haruhime when she first came to the pleasure quarter, because no matter what she did to her, Haruhime would always smile like she had already given up on everything. Aisha got so annoyed that she broke a precious stone to vent her frustration, but it ended with her getting beaten up by Fern, while Ishtar took advantage of her injured body. So after that, Aisha has never been able to defy anything Ishtar tells her, and she asks Bell why he isn't trying to get Haruhime back from her. She tells him he can't save her if he keeps worrying about everything, and notes that she can't let him have Haruhime, because he's a coward who can't make a decision. As the other Amazons finally arrive, Haruhime holds Aisha in place, and tells him to get away. But he's too shocked by Aisha's words to do anything, so Makoto grabs him and runs away with him, while the Amazons start following them. As Bell and Makoto are hiding, he keeps thinking about Haruhime, and he's angry at himself since he has no idea what to do. Meanwhile, Hestia and the others try to reach them, but the guards don't let them in, because they're closed for the day. They realize that all of the entrances have been blocked, and it seems like instead of keeping people out, they're trying to make sure no one can escape. We see Fern yelling at everyone else, since they haven't found Bell, so Aisha reminds her that it's her fault for disobeying Ishtar's order. But Fern mentions that everything would have been okay if Haruhime hadn't interfered, and a girl named Samira tells them to calm down. She notes that they can just give Bell to Ishtar after the ritual is over, because he isn't strong enough to stop them, and she thinks they should just let him run for now. Meanwhile, Bell thinks about when Haruhime told him that a hero will never save someone like her, and he's annoyed since he thinks it isn't true, but he's surprised to see that his hand is glowing. Makoto returns after checking their surroundings, and she mentions that all of their pursuers have gone back, so it's the perfect time for them to escape, but he plans to save Haruhime instead. She reminds him of what will happen if he saves her, but he thinks Hestia and the others will understand, which makes Makoto cry, and she decides to help him. The Amazons who were following Bell return to Aisha, and they mention that they couldn't find him, so they think he may have already escaped, but she's sure he'll return to save Haruhime. Makoto notes that after she makes contact with Haruhime, she'll fire a flare to signal him, and notes that she'll use the green one if she's able to get her out. But she'll use the red one if she fails, and in that scenario, one of them needs to find the killing stone and destroy it. After that, Bell rushes towards the front gate and breaks through it using his firebolt. He spams it to get rid of the Amazons, but Hestia and the others hear the commotion, so they attack the guards and break in as well. While everyone is distracted by Bell, Makoto holds a needle to one of the Amazons, and after she gets Haruhime's location, she knocks her out. Fern tells everyone that Bell has returned, so Samira needs to start the ritual, and she takes Aisha with her to fight him. Bell keeps running around their home, and he attacks everyone he sees with his firebolt, but he ends up running into Fern, who starts throwing her axes at him. He tries to hit her with his firebolt, but it has no effect on her, and she sends him flying through a door. The Amazons are about to attack him, but Ishtar tells them to stop, and orders them to go to the ritual site. Bell asks her why Haruhime needs to die, which makes her laugh, since she didn't think he would have the courage to talk about another woman in her presence. She notes that she'll use Haruhime to rank up all of her children, so that they can defeat Freya's Familia, and Ishtar reveals that she hates Freya, since all the men think she's the most beautiful woman. Bell wonders why she trained Haruhime if she planned to sacrifice her from the beginning, but she doesn't think there's anything wrong with it, and tells him she doesn't have time to argue with him. One of her men named Tammuz holds Bell to the ground, and she mentions that he's at level 4, so Bell won't be able to get away from him. She takes off her clothes, which makes him embarrassed, and he tries to look away, but Tammuz forces him to look at her. He still closes his eyes and tells her to put on her clothes, which confuses her, since he should have already been charmed by her. She takes a look at his back, and she's shocked to see the skill that crystallizes emotions, which means divine charms won't work on him. He gets away from Tammuz, and she tells him to make sure Bell doesn't escape, so Tammuz runs after him. Meanwhile, as Haruhime is being taken to the ritual site, Makoto comes to her rescue, but Haruhime reminds her that if she tries to save her, it will lead to another war. She doesn't understand why Haruhime has already given up, and Makoto notes that if she just asks Bell for help, he'll never let her go. She starts to cry, and notes that she's someone who has sold her body to men she doesn't even like, so she can't forgive herself for it, and thinks she has no right to ask anyone for help. A group of Amazons arrive, and one of them hits Makoto with her blade, so she jumps off the tower to escape, and fires the red flare to let Bell know that she failed. They finally start the ritual, and as Samira is about to stab Haruhime, Makoto once again comes to her rescue. She tells Makoto to leave, but she refuses to go back without Haruhime, so Samira decides to take care of her. She rushes towards Makoto and starts beating her up, and she's surprised by how strong Samira is, since she wasn't expecting a level 3 to be so powerful. A girl reports to Fern that Bell has escaped, so she yells at him to come out, or else his friend will be killed, but Makoto tells him to stay hidden. Samira shows Makoto that the ritual has already started, which makes her remember the time Takazuki told her that ninjas don't play fair, but they're always loyal. He knows that it isn't her style, but thinks she can still become the greatest ninja if she has something to protect. She grabs onto Samira, who starts beating her up, but Makoto refuses to let go, and Samira is shocked as Makoto's body starts glowing. She discharges her magic, which blows everyone away, and as she falls down the tower, she yells at Bell to save Haruhime. He finally shows himself, so Fern orders one of the girls to eliminate Haruhime, but he manages to disarm her, and shatters the killing stone into pieces. Meanwhile, Ishtar is shocked to see that the pleasure quarter is on fire, because Freya's Familia has launched an attack, and Freya tells everyone to do their jobs, while she leaves to talk with Ishtar. At the ritual site, Bell tells the Amazons to let Haruhime go, since the killing stone has been destroyed, but Fern notes that they'll just find another stone. Haruhime tells him to leave, since she doesn't want to be a burden on anyone, but he thinks the heroes they believe in would never abandon her. She starts to cry, and notes that she's a filthy person who doesn't deserve to be saved, but he tells her she has done nothing she should be embarrassed about. He explains that a person should only feel ashamed when they don't have the will to take action, and notes that she never tells him what she truly wants. But Fern hits the ground to blow him away, and tells Haruhime to boost her level. She starts using her spell, but instead of applying it to Fern, she uses it on Bell and tells him to save her, since she doesn't want to die. Fern hits her in anger, so Bell starts attacking her, but she notes that increasing his level won't help him, and they appear to be evenly matched. The other girls are distracted by what's going on in the city, so Aisha tells them to run away, since they've been attacked by Freya, and she knows that they can't win without the killing stone. We see Freya's Familia members telling Ada they won't help Bell, but he doesn't care as long as they cut off Ishtar's escape route. As they keep moving forward, he sees Makoto lying on the ground, so he uses a healing potion on her. Meanwhile, Hestia and the others are surprised since they haven't run into anyone, but a girl suddenly attacks them. She knocks Welf down, but before she can finish him off, a man named Alan, who belongs to the Freya Familia, stabs her with his spear and tells Welf to get lost. At the ritual site, Bell and Fern keep fighting each other, and as she blows him away, she notes that Haruhime will forever be with them, but he mentions that she isn't a tool. He grabs a sword and uses it to scratch her face, which makes her lose her mind, and she tries to crush him with her axe. He manages to dodge it, but it shatters the ground, and he rushes towards her, so she tries to block his attack, but she ends up falling down as the floor collapses. As Fern gets out of the debris, she notices that the city is on fire, and she's shocked as Ada appears in front of her. She tries to attack him, but he crushes her hand, so she begs him to spare her life. She offers her body to him, telling him she's just as beautiful as Freya, but he becomes furious at the comparison to his goddess, and he crushes her head. Meanwhile, as Makoto wakes up, she sees that she's being carried by Takazuki, and they tell her they still haven't found Bell, so she tells them to go to the Hanging Garden. At the ritual site, Aisha tells Bell that she can't just let him take Haruhime, because leaving a Familia comes with a price. She notes that even if he can save her, another Familia will hear about her powers, and he'll end up going through everything he's experiencing once again, but he doesn't care. As they prepare to fight, Bell waits until the level boost spell runs out to attack her, and she thinks he's stupid, but she still likes his character. We see Ishtar trying to escape, but she runs into Freya, so she tells the Amazons to attack her, but Freya instantly charms them. Ishtar is shocked seeing this, and she apologizes for kidnapping Bell, but Freya notes that she can't forgive her for her actions, since she won't let anyone have him. Hermes looks at the burning city with Asfi, and he thinks it's all his fault, since he was the one who told Ishtar about Bell, but he never thought it would lead to such a conclusion. Asfi asks him what his goal is, so he notes that he'll accomplish what even Zeus failed to do, by making Bell the last hero. Bell continues fighting Aisha, who mentions that people like him make her blood run hot, and she manages to slash his face, but he almost lands a hit on her as well. They both use their spells on their swords, and as she takes a swing, the shockwave from her attack almost blows him away. But he manages to block it, and both of their swords are broken into pieces. They charge at each other, but Bell covers his fist with his firebolt, and he manages to blow her away. Meanwhile, Ishtar keeps running away from Freya, and she runs into a dead end, but she notices Thomas sneaking up on Freya, so she tries to distract her. She tells Freya that divine charms don't work on Bell, but it makes her want him even more, and Thomas lunges at her, but she instantly charms him as well. Ishtar can't believe she charmed her man, and she wonders if Freya is really more beautiful than her, but she notes the difference between the two of them is elegance. Ishtar starts to lose it, and tries to attack Freya, but she slaps her and pushes her off the building. A pillar of light appears, and Hestia tells everyone that Ishtar is being summoned back to heaven, so she'll never be able to return to Earth. Bell is surprised to see the light, and he notices that Freya is watching him, but she just tells him something and leaves. As Haruhime wakes up, Bell notes that he came to save her, and breaks the choker on her neck. She calls him her hero, and Hestia arrives with the others, while Makoto mentions that she's glad Haruhime is okay. We see the god Ares, who leads an army from the kingdom of Rakia to attack Orario, but Gareth from the Loki Familia smashes the ground, which creates a shockwave that blasts them away. Meanwhile, Aisha says goodbye to Haruhime, who thanks her for everything she's done, but she tells Haruhime to stop saying such things, because it's making her feel sad. She plans to head to Rakia's army, and Welf mentions that even though their army is huge in number, they all consist of normal soldiers, so they're no match for high-level adventurers. As Aisha is about to leave, she tells Haruhime to do whatever she wants, because she's finally free, and she warns Bell that if something happens to her, she'll make him regret it. Samira is surprised that Haruhime still believes she was a real night worker, because in reality, she passed out every time she saw a man, so nothing really happened to her. After that, Bell meets with Hermes and thanks him for the information he gave them, but he notes that Bell is the hero who saved Haruhime. He tells Bell about the 3 great quests, which involve defeating 3 ancient monsters, and he notes that it's the reason why everyone's waiting for a hero. He reveals that Zeus and Hera's Familias worked together to fight the 3 monsters, and they were able to defeat 2 of them, but they were wiped out before they could eliminate the last one, which is known as the Black Dragon. Bell is surprised because he thought the Black Dragon was just a legend, but Hermes notes that it's real, and he tells Bell that any one of the adventurers in Orario has the chance to become a hero. On the battlefield, Ares wonders why they're losing, so his advisor Marius notes that it's because the adventurers are insanely strong, and he thinks they should just retreat. Ares trips him and notes that his father does whatever he says, so Marius mentions that it's the reason why his father is called the Moron King, since he doesn't call Ares out for his dumb ideas. Meanwhile, as Bell returns to the house, he sees Haruhime doing everyone's laundry, so he offers to help her. She tries to stop him, refuses to listen and ends up grabbing her underwear, which makes them both embarrassed. Hestia notices them, and notes that the boys and girls in her familia aren't allowed to touch each other, so Haruhime tries to use her tail to grab his hand, but Hestia stops her from doing that as well. After that, Lily argues with Hestia about her new rule, since it will be difficult to fight in the dungeons if they can't touch each other, so Hestia tells Lily it's her job as a supporter to find a way around it. Lily tells her that if she really plans to enforce the rule, she'll also be forbidden from touching Bell, but she notes that she's a goddess, so she needs to touch him to update his status. As they continue to argue with each other, Hestia finally backs down, but notes that flirting isn't allowed. Makoto asks her if her rule applies to the gods as well, and Welf notes that he's pretty close with Hephaestus, so she tells them that love between a child and a god is always welcome. Lily thinks she's being ridiculous that only gods can date mortals, but they can't date each other, so Hestia tells her to just forget about everything. She asks Bell what he would do if a goddess confessed her love to him, and he notes that he would reject her, since he wouldn't feel worthy of her love, so Hestia becomes upset and runs off. He doesn't understand what he did wrong, and Lily mentions that if he really meant what he said, it would also apply to adventurers and supporters. She explains that if a person couldn't be with the one they loved because of who they are, it would make them extremely sad, so he goes to look for Hestia. We return to the battlefield, where we see people from Orario trying to sell their items to the injured soldiers, while Aisha is looking for a man worthy of her time. Ares realizes that they can't win a straight-on fight, so he decides to kidnap a god from Orario and make them surrender, which shocks Marius. But before he can stop Ares, he runs off and tells Marius to follow him. Meanwhile, as Bell is looking for Hestia, he runs into Mayak and Hephaestus, and he asks them if they have seen her, but they have no idea where she is. They notice that something's wrong with him, so he asks them if gods can fall in love with humans, and Mayak notes that it's happened before. Bell doesn't understand how that works, since they're completely different from each other, but they wonder what he's afraid of. They mention that if a goddess confesses her love to him, he shouldn't run away from her, and still respect her even if he loves someone else. Hestia is still angry at Bell, thinking that he doesn't need to be so formal with her. A woman notices Hestia and asks her to gather ingredients for her, which annoys her since she's a goddess. But she still decides to help the woman, and she starts looking for the ingredients, but she runs into Ganesha, who lets her out the front gate. We see Ares and Marius trying to sneak into Orario, and Ares thinks their disguise is perfect, but Marius tells him to stop being loud. He notes that their disguise isn't that amazing, since they're just wearing a cloak, and Ares reveals that he plans to kidnap a god from the streets. Marius can't believe how stupid he is, but he notices Hestia walking past him, so he just grabs her and runs away. The whole town starts to panic, and Bell notices Eyes, who tells him that Hestia has been kidnapped. Loki is annoyed at Ganesha, since he was the one who let her out of the front gate, so she kicks him away. Eyes asks Finn if the pursuit team has any information, but he mentions that the enemy has split into multiple units, which are fleeing in different directions. They have no idea what to do, since they don't know much about the terrain outside Orario, but Eyes decides to go look for her. Bell wants to join her, and Loki is against the idea, since she thinks he'll just slow Eyes down, but he refuses to just sit back while his goddess is in trouble. Finn notes that if they just go out blindly, they won't be able to achieve anything, but Hermes suddenly appears, and he mentions that Asphi can help them locate Hestia. As they start their rescue mission, Asphi flies into the sky and tells Eyes and Bell where to go. They catch up to Ares in no time, and he tries to attack Eyes with his sword, but she breaks it in half, and he's surprised that she was able to do that. She ends up getting surrounded, so Asphi tries to help her, but Marius grabs her leg with his chain and tells the archers to shoot her down. Hestia manages to break free while they're fighting, but she falls down a cliff, so Bell and Eyes jump after her. As Hestia wakes up, she sees Bell sitting beside her, and she asks him where they are, so he notes that they're staying at the mayor's house in a mountain village. He tells her that Eyes saved both of them from the water, and Hestia asks him about Eyes, so he mentions that she went to see whether the Rakia army is still coming after them. The mayor, Karm, appears with his daughter Rena, so Hestia thanks them for their help, and she asks for his permission to stay there for a while longer, so he tells her he has no problem with it. Eyes returns and notes that even though she didn't find Asphi or the Rakia army, she still thinks they should stay there for a while, and Bell agrees with her, but he blushes as he sees her dry off her hair. Meanwhile, we see that Karm is in bad health, so Rena takes care of him, and he's happy that he has a kind daughter, but he tells her to rest since she needs to take care of Hestia. The next day, Rena brings tea for Hestia and Bell, and she mentions that a festival is taking place in the town to pray for a good harvest, so Hestia tells Bell to help them. As he's about to leave, he runs into Eyes, and he tells her she looks great in her new clothes, but she asks him where he's going, so he notes that he'll help the villagers prepare for the festival. After that, a villager is surprised by how beautiful Eyes is, and he wonders if all the girls in Orario are like her, so Bell mentions that everyone has their own charm. As he walks around the village, he notices something strange, so a villager tells him it's a scale from the Black Dragon. She reveals that there are 10 of them, and we learn that the villagers pray to the scales, because they scare the monsters away. The villagers note that it's the only reason why they can live in peace, and they don't know what they'll do when the Black Dragon is defeated. But Bell is surprised that they think the Black Dragon is the one bringing them peace, because the legends mention that it will destroy the world. As he's about to leave, he sees Eyes standing in front of a scale, but she has an angry look on her face. As Bell returns to the house, he sees Karm standing beside Hestia while she's sleeping, and he tells Bell he wants to talk to him. So they go to another room, where Karm shows Bell an emblem, and reveals that he was once a child of a goddess, but he couldn't save her. After she died while saving him from a group of monsters, she was called back to heaven, and he thought about ending his life and following her. But he couldn't bring himself to waste the life she gave him, so he came to the village and never got married. He mentions that Rena is his adopted daughter, and Bell becomes worried when he starts coughing, but he assures Bell that he's fine, and tells him to protect Hestia, so that he won't have any regrets. As Hestia wakes up, she feels less tired than before, but she decides to stay in bed, because Bell will keep taking care of her. Eyes brings her dinner since Bell is talking with Carm, so Hestia thanks her for her help and asks her what she thinks of Bell. So she notes that he's like a rabbit, and Hestia is happy that she doesn't seem to like him. After that, they go to the festival, where the villagers start doing the harvest dance. They tell Hestia that if an unmarried man asks a girl for a dance, it means he likes her, and if the girl accepts his offer, they end up becoming lovers. They want Hestia to dance as well, so she tells Bell to ask her for a dance, and promises to forget about why she was angry with him if he does what he's told. So he agrees to do it, but she tells him to ask her like he did with Eyes, so he invites her to dance with him, which makes her happy. As they're dancing, he thinks about how she's the most important thing in his life, but he doesn't know how much time they'll be able to spend together. Rena suddenly arrives, and she takes them back to Carm, who looks like he's about to die. As he looks at Hestia, he remembers his goddess Brigid, which surprises her, because they used to be best friends. He's worried that he won't be able to see Brigid after he goes to heaven, so Hestia assures him that she'll find him, and he starts crying since he sees Brigid in her. After Carm passes away, Bell asks Hestia if Carm will be able to find Brigid, but she thinks it will be difficult, because when souls return to heaven, they're restored to a pure white state. So they forget everything and return to the lower world, and she asks him if he doesn't think a human and a god should fall in love with each other. So he notes that humans have a limited lifespan, while gods live forever, and he doesn't want them to deal with the pain of losing someone they love. She tells him he doesn't need to think about it, because no matter how old he gets, she'll always be with him, which makes him cry. She notes that even if death tears them apart, she will still find him no matter how long it takes, so he doesn't need to be afraid of falling in love with her. The next day, they visit Carm's grave, and they decide to leave the village. But Bell wants to return when he has the chance, and Eyes tells him to bring her as well, but Hestia gets jealous, and tells her to stay away from him. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.